be like the guy in Mortal Kombat or whatever, sitting on a big off. Well, Reggie sitting on that.
It's once and it works.
I did.
Say something real quick.
Real quick.
You're nice.
Use the mic. I guess my prayers will be on here for a while.
Oh,
Recording.
well, and Marcelo, do we need to use the mic for the prayer? We're not recording that. Yeah, okay, you don't have to ring.
Gracious God, Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for thee, grateful for all the many blessings thou hast given us. Thank you that we could be in this class at this time, and help us that we can take something from this class and apply it to our lives. And thank you for Larry and Stacy, and for Ron, and for all the instructors. And we really appreciate you and all that we have, and please help us be better marksmanship of marksmen, and we ask these things in the sacred name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please stand and face the flag. It's behind you. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I think everybody is going to enjoy this class. I'm pretty sure you're going to get a lot out of it. One of the things that we do, as you know, when we start a class is we ask you what it is you expect to get out of the class. And we'll go around the room. Who would like to start?
Spending time out in the woods,
Oh, yeah, where's the microphone, Ron?
Yeah, test. Yeah, so spending time, a lot of time out in the woods over the years, I've contemplated what I would do with different hazardous situations with these animals that we live that are right in our backyard. So this class is intriguing to me to know, to couple our skills as marksmen, but also the many other skills that are involved with dealing with the predators out in the wild that share our backyard here.
Thank you.
For me, it's just like the outside, like in the wilderness. If you need, just to know how to protect yourself, want to learn more about that against animals and different things, not just humans. So excited for that.
Very good.
Well, for me, I don't spend much time in the woods. I want to, and I think this class is appropriate, not just from the marksmanship standpoint, but I think from the mindset standpoint, being aware of the different threats that are out there and being able to respond to those threats appropriately with the right training.
Well, everything that these gentlemen just said, and also kind of what the laws are of when you can shoot these animals. So,
Yes, bears are protected, and the government is if you kill a bear in self-defense, there's going to be a federal investigation. They take it very seriously, and you better had good cause. And we're going to explain exactly what's required by the federal agencies to constitute self-defense. And people would think, well, the bear's attacking me. It's a little more complicated than that. And that'll be a major part of our class today. Who's next?
Me.
Sir.
I'm here just to get a feel for the tempo and tenor of the class, how the class is held, and whether I can keep up. That's it.
Well, take my word for it, you'll keep up. Robert's my father-in-law, and he's very sharp. And what was your rank when you retired from the part of
Acting battalion.
acting battalion chief of the,
For fire.
which fire department?
Santa Fe Springs.
Santa Fe Springs, California. I know that, but sometimes it slips away from me. Anyway, he's also a pilot. He does a lot of things that require that you be pretty smart, and I'm sure he'll have no problem with any of this. Who's next?
Really, I think the same reason I've taken your other classes to be able to better protect my family. We bought a piece of dirt up in the mountains, begun kind of frantically trying to prepare a place of refuge for when all this falls apart. And we've been spending a lot of time up there. And 3 a.m. when I'm working on this or that, it's definitely struck me that I really have no idea what's out there and what to do.
What to do, yes. Interesting that you mentioned family, however. Typically, and I didn't know this until recently because of the study that I do. I've studied every documented bear attack for the last 100 years. And one thing is that if a bear comes into a campground, something like that, he will try to take the youngest child because they're easier to carry and less likely to be able to resist. So if there's a baby there, he's going to try to take that baby. If it's a toddler, is the youngest person there, he'll go for the toddler. There's been quite a number around the world. There's been quite a number of bear attacks in schools in Russia and different places where the school might be very close to a bear's territory. They'll have bears just walk right into the school, and they'll always go for the smaller person. If there's no children, then they'll try to take the female because she's smaller. So family is certainly one of the things I think all of us are concerned about. Who's next?
Probably just like learning how to defend myself in the mountains when I'm up there at the property with them. If he's working on something and a bear stumbles into the, camp, I can do something about it. So.
All of us apparently are wise enough to know that there are differences in defending yourself against a human threat and a predatory animal. So we will be addressing those. And we have our PowerPoint ready to go. You sure? By the way, there's other animals what we're going to discuss. One is venomous snakes. How many people are killed in the United States by bears every year? A handful. You count them on your fingers. There's a lot more that are maimed and sometimes horribly maimed, but the numbers are still relatively small. There's other animals. In Florida, last year, 49 people were attacked by alligators. 27 died. That's probably more than bears in the whole U.S. And snakes are a real big concern. They're definitely a threat. 172,000 worldwide. 172,000 people every year die of venomous snake bite. 172,000. This is a staggering number. That number is not as high in the U.S. as in many other places. For example, India used to be at 50,000. Now they've got it down to 20,000 a year. But in the U.S., we have helicopters to get people to hospitals quick. We have good antivenom available in hospitals in rural areas. And so we have a pretty low death rate. But to remember, I've got it here in my notes somewhere. How many Americans lose a limb? I think it's 120 Americans a year lose a limb from a snake bite. So snakes are nothing to fool with, and they are definitely one of the threats that we need to concern ourselves with. So. There's not a lot of places that teach what we teach this subject. The Canadian government has a class somewhat like ours, but it's only for employees, federal employees in Canada that work in the forest. And the Gunsight Academy in Arizona teaches a class similar to this. And it's probably a pretty good one. I'm still a range master at the Gunsight Academy. I'm still on the books. Every once in a while they ask me to teach a class, but they have an instructor there. She's been a guide since she was a teenager, hunting guide. She's got a lot of experience. She teaches their predator defense class. And that's it. Us, Marksmanship Matters, and Gunsight. There's nowhere else. So. And there's a variety of survival situations where a firearm might be useful, not just in defense against an animal. We'll talk about some of these things. I think you're going to be surprised at how much you learn in this class. No gun handling in the classroom. If we need to, you want to show us something with a gun, we have rubber guns in our admin box. We'll be happy to provide that for you if you need it. We shouldn't have any live ammunition in the classroom unless you're carrying, you have a Utah permit and you're carrying concealed. And if you are, just let us know. The restrooms are down this hall and to the left. There's 2 restrooms down there, so usually you can find one of them available. No, there's no beverages available.
I do have some water back here and some cookies, and you can get it anytime and take a break whenever you want. We will give breaks.
Okay, I don't think I need to go through this much. We do that in the basic class. But I will mention some other backgrounds. So handgun hunting and predator defense has been a lifelong hobby. What I know about combat with firearms and combat with people, much of it came from my own experiences, as you know, from the military and law enforcement, SWAT, all that. That's not the case here. I know I've had very little personal experience with being attacked by bears. I'd have to say none. But I've spent a lot of time tracking down the people that have those experiences and interviewed them and gathered information. I've read a lot of books on the subject, and I talked to several gentlemen that were federal rangers in Alaska, and they've handled a lot of bear incidents. So another thing is on podcasts, on the various, there must be half a dozen podcasts about bear attacks. They just, all day long, they read the reports that are available and they pass on information. So if you have an inkling, a desire to do more research on it, there's a lot of research information out there for you. So I've studied this subject for about 70 years. I've read a lot of books, talked to people that have been involved. I've also taught handgun hunting and rifle hunting at the Gunsight Academy. And I taught handgun classes at Gunsight with Smith & Wesson executives. And I've taught a revolver. One thing about the Woods gun, a lot of times it's a revolver, and not a lot of instructors out there today have experience teaching revolver. But I taught at the LA Police Academy for 7 months on the revolver before we went to auto pistols. And at that time, we didn't go to autos until '86. So I started on LAPD in '69. So for 9 years, carried and shot and qualified with revolvers on and off duty. Oh, it says 17 years. I'll take that. I've shot revolvers in competition for over 20 years. And Stacy has too. First 3 handguns I owned. I wasn't old enough to buy a gun. My parents had to buy my first 3 guns for me. They were all revolvers, and they were all woods guns. I taught self-defense with single-action revolvers at the Gunsight Academy for Ruger executives and gun riders. I've used handguns and rifles to hunt deer, sheep, coyotes, rabbits, small game, pigs, and I've killed a few rattlesnakes. I've been confronted by Asian water buffalo, bears, mountain lions, and rattlesnakes. I've been struck at by rattlesnakes on several occasions. I've killed well over a dozen rattlesnakes with a variety of handguns and loads. This is going to be a bit major part of your week. We're going to be dealing with snakes and how to get rid of them. I've shot sharks from a boat. I spent one summer scuba diving every week. Every day I had off, I was scuba diving. And we would stand up on the bow of the boat and shoot sharks with our pistols. There was a police, LAPD dive club. Everybody had a gun. I've interviewed several lifelong Alaskan residents who've defended themselves from bears. I've interviewed the Fish and Game official who investigates all cases of bear shot in self-defense on the Kenai, Alaska Peninsula. He is also the one who goes into the brush to finish off bears wounded by hunters and ranchers. He's been charged many times. I've written numerous articles on predator defense, ammo and handguns used in predator defense. All of you have a handout that Stacy and I prepared. If you just got it today, you haven't had a chance to look at it, but it's really the word I'm looking for. Very complete. It'll be very useful for you in deciding what caliber handgun you want to carry in the woods, whether single action revolver, double action revolver, semi-auto, what kind of ammunition, what brand, what style, all that. We've done comparisons from every kind of gun, every kind of ammunition for this purpose. And we'll go into that shortly. So most of what I know is from a lifetime of study and the experience of others. If you looked for a self-defense handgun instructor that has as much actual combat as Stacy and myself, you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody. But as far as this goes, there's plenty of people out there that know a lot more about predator defense than we do, but we're learning. And we're sharing what we know. How many of you know who Elmer Keith was? He was one of the people who invented the .357 Magnum. He invented the .44 Magnum. He invented the .41 Magnum. He invented the Keith-style bullets. He's written a lot of books. Had a lot of good experiences. I have everything he's ever written. So after 60 years of studying, testing, researching, and learning from the experience of others, I don't claim to know everything about this or any other subject. I do, however, know more about this subject than most people. Stacy and I know more than most people. We continue to study the subject frequently. Stacy, how often would you say I listen to a podcast on a bear attack?
I mean, so much to where it becomes annoying for Wyatt and I, but it's good. Oh, sorry. Yeah, yes, I would say daily.
Yeah, I
So
see.
he would listen to it even more if Wyatt and I didn't kind of raise a brow to it, just because we have to hear it. And this stuff a lot of times is really gruesome. I mean, you can completely recreate the situations that he's listening to. It's not like, oh, this bear attacked this person and this is how he took care of the bear. I mean, it goes in great detail. So, yes, it's constant.
A lot of these bear attacks are documented in one place or another, and you can listen to the written version. One of the channels is called Scary Bear Attacks. Yeah, good stuff. I've learned a lot from these experiences of others. I would hate to have to learn a lot about bear attacks by being attacked a lot of times by bears. It's better if you can learn from what other people have experienced. So, this course contact. This is a survival class. Training consists of 12 subjects. Firearm safety is always going to be at the top of that list. Manipulation with Woods handguns. Most of you are trained on a striker-fired semi-automatic pistol. How many of you had professional training on a single-action revolver, a double-action revolver? Well, most of us have not. I think it's easier, in my opinion, it's easier to develop a mindset that allows you to use force against a bear or some other animal than people in self-defense. We're going to talk about how do you signal with a firearm. Oh, everybody knows you fire 3 shots. Then what do you do? So we're going to go into some detail. We're going to give you a system for signaling for help with a handgun. Survival fishing. Studying cases where people get lost in the outback. They sometimes run out of gas. They don't have any food. They run out of food. And what they need is protein. They need a rabbit or a fish or something. So there's something called survival hunting. We'll go into that. Emergency fire starting. We had a guy in Utah was fishing, went on a stream, slipped on the rocks, fell into the water, got soaked, died of hypothermia. Tried to get a fire going, he couldn't. Everything was too damp from snow. So we'll give you some options there. We'll talk about being in the woods and running into some kind of a criminal. We have drug smugglers. We have human traffickers, and you might stumble across some real bad people. As a matter of fact, we have crime statistics for you on our national parks, and you will be surprised. Rattlesnake encounters. What will cause a rattlesnake to strike? Why would you get bit by a rattlesnake? It's like people say, why did that guy steal that money? Because he could. A rattlesnake will bite you because he can. The rattlesnake, dumb as he might be, knows that if you step on him, you're going to break his back and he's going to die. Oh, he's not going to, before you step on him, he's going to try to bite you. So all you have to do to get struck by a rattlesnake is get close enough without knowing he's there. We're going to talk about equipment, a lot about firearms and ammunition, and federal guidelines for killing aggressive bears in self-defense. We're going to give you very specific guidelines, 3 sets of numbers that you're going to write down. Now we're just going to review safety. All of you have completed our basic pistol course, so you should have good safety habits and understand why we follow those. So we just have a brief review on safety for this class. Who can give me rule 1? Raise your hand.
All guns are always loaded.
All guns are always loaded. So if I take my gun and I take out the magazine and I lock the slide back and I check it, is it still loaded? We're going to still treat it as if it is. Why will we treat that gun as if it's loaded even if we believe it's not? Habit. If you treat the gun in an unsafe manner because you believe it's unloaded, those will become habit. Those things will become habitual. What's the other reason? Treat the gun as if it's loaded, whether we think it is or not. The next instructor that gives a class person an answer to a question that I ask, I'm going to have their ass. I'm tired of that. I want to know what the class thinks, what they believe. So knock that shit off. So what's the other reason we treat the gun as if it's loaded even if we think it's not? We could be mistaken, right? But no one had that. We've got the same accident photos. You don't have to see them again if you don't want to. We'll briefly talk about chamber checks as well. So rule 1, all guns are always loaded. We could be mistaken, and we're making habits. Those are the 2 reasons that we're going to treat the gun as if it's loaded, even if it's not, even if we think it's not. Good? Most accidents occur with a gun that someone was certain was unloaded. And I've seen people discharge weapons after saying with great emphasis that they were certain it was unloaded. We're human, we err. If you cover someone, they may assume that you. It's another reason we don't want to sweep people with a gun, even if it's unloaded, because that person may take offense. You sweep somebody with your muzzle, they may get very upset. Rule 2. Somebody give me rule 2. Yeah. That's rule 4. Okay, rule 2. Anybody? Never allow the muzzle to cover anything you're not willing to destroy. You got it. A lot of people think they'll read that back as never point the gun. Never point the gun at anything you're not willing to destroy. But point your gun suggests an intentional act, right? And it's usually not an intentional act. It's usually inadvertent sweeping with the muzzle. So we don't want to try to change that into points your gun. Never allow the muzzle to cover. Okay, so you everybody understand the difference? And when you holster your pistol, you don't cross your hand. You don't point it at your kidney, your hip, your leg. That would be a violation of Rule 2, wouldn't it? Because we are not willing to destroy our body, our hand, or whatever. Rule 3. Keep your finger off the trigger. I'm going to read this one. Keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on the target and you intend to shoot. That's pretty plain, isn't it? If you've made the decision to shoot, you have your sights on target, your fingers on the trigger. Otherwise, it's not. In my lifetime, I've probably come across, studied, read about, saw on the news, dozens of negligent discharges, accidental discharges. One factor was always there. They always had their finger on the trigger. If your finger's not on the trigger, how's the gun going to fire? You have to activate that trigger. If you keep your finger outside the trigger guard, you're not going to accidentally activate that trigger. When I taught a SWAT class for Ray Chapman at the Chapman Academy, some of you heard me tell this before. Ray, after we got done with the safety briefing, Ray said, I have only 3 safety rules. 1, keep your finger off the trigger. 2, keep your damn finger off the trigger. 3, keep your damn finger off the damn trigger. If you just do that, you can't accidentally fire the gun. So it's pretty plain and simple. 99+% of negligent discharges involve a finger on the trigger when it should not have been there. Holstering with your finger on the trigger will result in you shooting yourself. If you holster with your finger on the trigger, and you discharge that weapon, there's a good likelihood you're gonna shoot your foot, you shoot your leg, you're gonna be injured. Okay? You said rule 4. You sure of your target? Know what's in line with it, what's behind it. Be sure of your target. Know what you yes, Catch.
I'm sorry, really quick, you know what, because I just talked to Marcelo. If what we're gonna do is, if you have something really profound to say, it's gonna be kind of a paragraph, we can use the microphone. If it's just the one-liner answers, we will just do that. It's mostly we want to record the content, what Larry's teaching. But like I said, if you have something really awesome to add, then we can do the microphone. Other than that, let's just answer the questions, you know, without using the microphone. And then Ron doesn't have to be up 100 times. It helps with time also. So that's what we're gonna do, okay? Right. But make sure too you speak loud enough.
Rule 4, know what you're shooting at. Never shoot at an unidentified target. Know what's behind your target. Know what's in line with it. You are responsible for every round that you fire. So again, all we require you to memorize is be sure of your target, right? When we get on the range, just like we've done in any other class you've attended, every student will stand up and cite the 4 rules, word for word. Ron, did you have your hand up? Okay. Chamber check in a revolver. So on a double action revolver, how many of you know that you open the cylinder, its cylinder swings out on a double action revolver? So to chamber check the revolver, you simply open the cylinder and examine your 5 or 6 or 7 firing chambers. If you've got dummy rounds, that'll be evident. If you've got live ammunition, that'll be obvious too. A single action revolver is a little bit more difficult in that you've got to open the loading gate and then rotate the cylinder so that each chamber comes into sight through the loading gate. And you check each, and if you're doing that, we count the chambers, and if you had a 6-shot revolver, I want you to count the 12. That means you saw every chamber twice in case you accidentally bypassed one. So you count, open the gate, look through the loading gate into the cylinders, firing chambers, turn the cylinder and count 12 chambers. When you're done, close the gate. If it's dark, you can stick your finger into those firing chambers, into the back of the firing chamber. So you open the gate, put your finger in, feel if that's an empty chamber, you can feel it's empty. If there's something in there, you can feel there's something in there. You may not be able to discern a live round from a dummy round, but you can see that it's empty or it's not empty. And when you're done, just close the gate. The double action revolver is a little easier because you don't have to reach through the gate. You can just come to the back of the cylinder and feel the chambers. If we were going to if we were going to allow revolvers in this class, we would go into a lot more detail on that. But we teach the revolver separately right now. This predator defense class, we've taught it with handgun only. We've taught it with rifle and handgun. So we have a few notes in our outline that pertain to the rifle that don't pertain to us right now. So you can open the action up in your rifle and visually or physically inspect the firing chamber. Okay, field holsters. Some of the most popular holsters that people wear in the woods are chest holsters or shoulder holsters or cross-draw holsters. People tend to like to get the gun higher on their body, not on their hip so much. If it's on the hip, it may likely interfere with a slung rifle. So people tend to stay away from carrying their pistol on the hip, especially if they're going to carry a rifle or a shotgun. Chest holsters are very popular. Also, if you fall in the river or something, get wet, you have to get really you'd have to get completely in the water to get your firearm wet. A lot of the ammunition we use is pretty, what's the word? It's pretty, it's not affected much by a little water. Shotguns, however, tend to be different. Shotguns shells tend to get wet, or if they get wet, they tend to not work. But normally with the pistol ammunition, it's not a problem. Now, if you're going to draw your gun from a cross draw or shoulder holster, there's a couple of things you got to think about. If I was on the firing line in this way, and I'm pulling my gun out, what am I doing here? I'm going to be covering everybody else that's to my left. So we've got to be really careful about that. Most ranges won't even allow you to practice drawing your gun. You go to an indoor range, you want to stand there in your little phone booth and practice drawing, they won't let you do it. What you can do if you're practicing at home with an unloaded gun or you're practicing in an open area, you want to turn so that the gun is pointed down range. And then you got to avoid covering your arm. So if I just pull this gun out right here, I'm going to cover my left arm. So I'm going to get my elbow up, pull the gun straight back, punch it into two hands, and come back around. So you got to figure out a way with your holster, however it works, figure out a way that you can draw it and holster it and not sweep people that are nearby. We do allow these kinds of holsters in this class. And if we're using one of these holsters, we put you on the left end. And a lot of things we have you do all by yourself. In other words, if the rest of the class, we might have them draw to the guard and then have you separately so we can monitor what you're doing to make sure you're safe. When using a cross draw or chest holster, count 1, grip. Count 2, twist your torso towards your strong side and raise your elbow, your support arm. Your support elbow is pointed at the target. Your support arm is parallel to the deck. And the support hand fist is at your chin. So there's my support hand. My elbow's up, my hand's near my chest. So every holster is going to, not every holster, but every different holster design is going to require small modifications by you. So you just need to figure it out. If you buy a field holster, you're going to have to just get in front of a mirror and figure out how you can Draw your gun from that holster and do it safely. Not cover yourself or those around you. Count 3 is always going to be guard. Remember, guard is your default position. If you're on the line and you're training and you're not quite sure where you need to be, or you can't hear the instructor, the range master, just go to guard, your default position. This is for all this stuff are things we're going to go over on the range if anybody's using a holster like this. You've all seen pictures, you've all seen these pictures. Now, talk about self-defense in the woods. When I give you the statistics on crimes in national parks and whatnot, you are going to be in disbelief. So in the meantime, let me just say there's a lot. And you might be confronted for some reason. You could run into somebody that was human trafficking or drug trafficking. There's a lot of ways that you might get into a problem. If you were to be fired at from a distance, so you get into somebody has got maybe a couple of mules, that is, a couple of people carrying large amounts of narcotics, and they see you, they might just try to scare you away, shoot at you a couple of shots. Anyway, for whatever reason, you find yourself in a confrontation with someone who has a rifle and you have a pistol. That's not, that's unfortunate because his effective range is probably going to be a great deal greater than yours. So we're going to show you how to hit targets at distance, how to aim your pistol differently so that you can hit targets at long ranges. Now it helps if you have a flat shooting pistol like a 10 millimeter or a 357 SIG or something, that high velocity cartridge. A prone position or a rest. You want to be resting on something. If you're on the ground, you can use the ground for your rest. You might use a tree, a dead tree, a fallen tree, something like that. But you're going to want to rest your support hand. Your support hand is going to rest on the support, whatever that may be, a rock or a tree, whatever it is. You don't let the gun touch the rest. The gun will recoil away from that contact, and it will change where the gun shoots. If you let the rest, put the gun down on a table where the butt's touching the table and try to shoot it for accuracy, it's not going to shoot to the same point of aim. You want your support hand to touch the rest, not the gun. That's a big deal. Now, the next thing is you're going to aim differently. See what these pictures look like. Remember I talked about Elmer Keith, invented the 44 Magnum, the 41 Magnum, was one of the people that invented the 357 and so on and so on. He came up with a system that we're about to show you. Very simple. He was guiding a hunter. The hunter wounded a mule deer and shot the rest of the shots in his magazine at the deer and didn't hit it again. So now the hunter's out of ammunition. Keith is carrying a 4-inch Smith 44 Magnum. This mule deer is now at 600 yards. He dumps it. He shoots it and kills it with his 4-inch revolver at 600 yards using this technique. So I'll show you. So he was a pioneer of long-range handgunning. So you place the target on top of the front sight just like you always do. People think, okay, I want to hit that. It's really far away, so I'll aim at some point above the target. That is very ineffective. You're still going to put your front sight on the target. Now, what happens when we're shooting and we accidentally drop our rear sight? Where do we shoot? We shoot high. In this case, we intentionally drop our rear sight. We still put the target right on top of the front sight post. And then we drop our rear sight down. Now, what Keith does, I'll show you in a minute here where those are. He has lines inset on his front sight. Each one of these is for a different distance. So if he drops the rear sight down to the bottom line, that might be a 300 yard, that might be a 300 yard zero. In other words, with the front sight lined up with this bottom line and the target on top of the front sight, he will be on target at 300 yards. Now let's say he only has to shoot 200 yards. He drops the rear sight only to this line. So now this rear sight is up here on this line. So he's not dropping it as much. Right, so now he's going to be on target and zeroed at 200 yards of this line. So you can put lines on your front sight and you can just go out and do a little experimenting, figure it out, and then paint lines on there. So you can have it set up for 200 yards and 300 yards. Now you're not going to be shooting 2-inch groups. Imagine that your gun shoots 4 inches at 25 yards, which is pretty common for a striker-fired gun. So at 100 yards, what's the group size? Okay, the gun shoots 4-inch group at 25 yards. Now we increase that distance to 100 yards. So now that's going to be 4 times, right? So what's the answer? 16 inches. If I got a 4-inch, my gun's shooting a 4-inch group at 25 yards, it's going to shoot a 16-inch group at 100, or a 32-inch group at 200. So we're going to get to the place where we're not going to be very effective pretty soon. If you have let's say you've got a Colt 1911 or one of the high end like a Staccato or something, and that gun's shooting 1.5 inches at 25 yards. What's that going to shoot at 100 yards? Six inches. Follow that? Big difference between 6 and 32. You follow? So your typical Glock, you could hit a target this big at, what did I say, 100 yards? You could hit a target this big, but with a more accurate gun, you could hit a target this big. So what I'm saying is the accuracy, the inherent accuracy of your gun is going to take you only so far. Your handgun's never going to shoot groups like your rifle. So if you've got a gun that'll shoot 1 inch at 25 yards, it'll shoot 4-inch group at 100 yards, it'll shoot 8 inches at 200. And that's very practical distance for that gun. But for a gun that's shooting 4 inches at 25 yards, 100, what do we say, it should be 16 inches at 100, right? 32 inches at 200. That's not going to be very satisfactory. But I like to think that if you're kicking dirt on him, he may be discouraged. In other words, he doesn't see a long gun on you, so he thinks he's safe. You should be able to at least get pretty close, kick dirt on him and make him think about it. Now, this is a different type of sight, just a different example. But again, we've lowered the rear sight. We don't try to aim above the target. Once again, we lower the rear sight. So we're doing what? We're changing the angle. The bullet is launched at an upward angle. By the time it comes back down, it's at the target distance. Heavy bullets will not shoot as flat as lighter bullets up close. Up close, a lighter, faster bullet will shoot flatter. Flatter meaning the trajectory. We don't have to aim as high to make that bullet drop in on our target. On the other hand, heavy bullets will shoot flatter at long range because they won't dissipate their velocity so quick. They will hold on to that velocity because that mass is greater. Follow? So we want, for a woods gun, one of the things we want is a heavy bullet. So if I'm looking at a 357, I don't want a 125, I want a 180. You follow? I want my bullets on the heavy side. I can shoot out to longer ranges. It's just one of the reasons we want heavier bullets. We'll talk about other reasons shortly. So heavy bullets loaded to the potential of their caliber are best for 200 and 300 yard shooting. Heavy bullets will retain more energy and have more penetration at longer range. Heavy bullets tend to be more accurate. Heavy bullets tend to be more accurate at longer range. They're more stable. But people say, well, at 300 yards, it'll bounce off a man, right? A 230 grain 45 ACP with a muzzle velocity of only 800 feet a second will pass completely through a man at 300 yards. Your pistol is still lethal. There's no doubt that you're still lethal at 300 yards. So when people say, well, it doesn't matter, even if you could hit them, you're not going to hurt them. Wrong answer. Consider your handgun's potential accuracy at long range. So you should know, based on what your gun will shoot at 25 yards, what it'll shoot at 12 yards, you should be able to extrapolate and figure out what it'll shoot at a given distance and kind of come up with a maximum effective range for you with your pistol. 12-inch group at 300 yards. 12-inch group at 300 yards, you're still on a man. That's not bad. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. We're just telling you there is a simple, you should go out and practice this. See where your gun shoots at different distances. And you may find that you're dropping that rear sight down. If you've got a dot on the front sight, let's say, drop the rear sight down until it aligns with the center of the dot. And then find out what distance it comes back onto the target, right? Because we're launching it up and then it's dropping into the target. Okay, we went over these numbers. So when we say 32-inch group at 200 yards for this particular pistol with a 1-inch group at 25, that assumes no wind and no human error. And both of those things could, of course, change your accuracy. Now, again, we're not going to go into a lot of this rifle stuff because that's for a different class. But I would just say, if you're selecting a rifle to be a woods gun, you might consider a rifle that's got about a 300 meter or 300 yard point blank range. Something that will reach out a little bit. Bow tail bullets tend to shoot slightly flatter. If you hand load or you're a rifle shooter, you probably know what bow tail bullets are and how they differ from flat tail projectiles. Flat-based bullets tend to be slightly more accurate. And They don't wear barrels out as fast. And some of the calibers that you might consider for a Woods rifle, 243, a 260 Remington, 7mm. These are short case, these are short action rifles. We suggest if you might end up doing combat with a bolt action rifle, you probably want a short throw. You don't want a real long bolt. So these are the calibers that I would consider. Short action rifles with short bolt travel are preferred for faster follow-up shots. If you're gonna use a rifle for a long-range self-defense situation, such things are extremely rare. But if you are going to you found yourself being shot at from a distance with a rifle, I've talked to several people that have been out in the woods doing whatever, and they start taking fire. Someone starts shooting at them. And sometimes they never even found why. But you still want to rest your support hand on the support. You don't rest the rifle on the support, right? Utilize any existing cover. If you carry a rifle that you intend to defend yourself with, you need to know how to use the sling. That's a whole subject in itself. And again, this is all part of the rifle, this class when we teach rifle and pistol. Just going to mention briefly, people say carrying a handgun in the woods, they're not as powerful. They don't drop bears like a shotgun slug will or a 45-70 rifle. A 45-70 rifle or a 12-gauge slug will fold a bear up like an accordion. And it will drop them like a bad habit. But the problem is you're going to go fly fishing. You want to also be carrying a big, heavy shotgun. You probably don't. So typically if people are carrying a gun in the woods for protection or for emergencies, they'll take a handgun. Even if you're just hiking and climbing, different things that you might do out in the woods, carrying a rifle or a shotgun might be very inconvenient. Here's the other thing. We've got numerous bear attacks where the guy shoots his elk, shoots his deer, sets his rifle against the tree, takes out his skinning knife, starts going to work on the deer or the elk. Now the bear comes, and he just can't quite get to the rifle. The handgun you wear, there's no excuse for taking it off. So we feel that the shotguns for self-defense in the field, rifles and shotguns, are somewhat impractical. They're just too heavy, too bulky, and you're going to need your hands to do other things. Why are you in the woods? Especially if you're fishing or maybe you're doing photography or whatever it is. Having that 7 pounds strapped on your shoulder in your way is going to get old fast. What tends to happen to such guns, they end up locked in the truck, and then you have no gun. If you were going to carry a shotgun in Alaska, they have something called bear guards. So if you're a bear guard, you get hired by scientific investigation folks, surveyors, different people, people that have to go out into the bear woods, but are not shooters, not gun people. They're not trained in how to defend yourself from bears or anything else. So these guys are like bodyguards for bears, bear guards. They will almost always carry a shotgun. A bear guard will almost always carry a 12-gauge shotgun with slugs. you carry a shotgun, you need to know how to switch it from one type of ammunition to another. Because the shotgun is very versatile, but only if you can match the ammunition to the animal or the problem. Okay, this is going to be again pretty brief. One of the things that did you have some? Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, during the break, if you have a question about anything I've already talked about, or a question about anything that I might know the answer, come and see us. We love to answer questions during the break. How we doing?
Pretty good.
It'll get more interesting real quick.
Yeah.
It's a little slow right now. That won't last. Don't forget there's cookies back here, guys. If I can get the box open, it won't be long.
It opens from the back.
Oh, now they take.
There it goes.
Now,
I was stranded in the mountains on a snowmobile that broke down.
really?
Soaking wet. Fell through a cornice into a river. Sun was going down, me and a buddy.
Yeah.
No lighter, no matches, no food, of course. And we were able to build a fire. Plus, snow was like 12 feet deep. So as soon as you stand up, you're up to the snow here. So we're like, gosh, can we
How'd you
build
get a fire going?
Fortunately, about 2 weeks before, my same riding buddy, we were riding when it was real hot, and he had this brilliant idea of taking his soaking wet, sweaty coat and laying it on his exhaust manifold when the sled wasn't running to dry it out. And then he forgot about it, and he drove down the road, and it created a fire. So we're like, hey. So we stole some of the gas out of the sleds, gathered a bunch of wood, took my wet shirt off, soaked it with gas, laid it on the header, and created a fire that way. But we spent almost 2 days there, and the helicopter found us because of the fire. It was a long day and a half.
Would you mind telling the class that story?
No, not at all. Yeah, that wasn't much fun.
Sorry about that. But also, did you see that there was a black bear attack in Florida like a week ago?
No, I know, but I have an alligator attack in Florida a week ago.
It was a fatal attack just like a week ago in Florida.
Do you know it? If you got the story, you can. I'll call on you.
I'll look over some details. I didn't really read the details, but I do know it's like an 80-something-year-old man dragged out of a camper or something.
We took a road trip in Louisiana. This guy was a lifelong gator. Never been out of it. We spent like 8 hours, just me and him and Mom on his boat. And he had like gator bite marks all over him. So he's like, yeah, my son was swimming, and I saw this gator over there. And I'm like,
last year, 49 people were attacked and bitten by alligators in Florida alone. That doesn't count all those other southern states.
yeah,
40, 27 died. 49 were bit and 27 died.
I don't know how you survive an alligator attack. I guess if you're on land, maybe you can run away in the water.
They always try to drag the victim into the water if they can,
Yeah, they drag you in the
because
water.
they drown you.
Spin you around.
They drown you. Once they pull an arm or a leg off, all your blood's gone in about a half a minute, you know.
Yeah.
They tend to drown people. The one that just happened in Florida a couple days ago, I think she's about an 80-year-old woman. What happened, the husband and wife are in a canoe in a river or pond or something, whatever it is. Anyway, the gator came up from underneath and then thrashed and turned over the canoe. Then it grabbed her and drowned her.
What a horrible way to die.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, being eaten alive by bears, any of this stuff, these are monsters. These are the things of nightmares.
Yeah.
You're gonna feel a lot better if you got the right kind of sidearm, the right kind of training.
Yeah.
You'll know that you can resolve almost any situation. Some of the things that we emphasize, which we'll talk more. You got to have at least 2 shooters in any group. If you got a camp family, bunch of campers, whatever it is, at least 2 shooters. Because if the bear attacks your only shooter, nobody can do anything. But if the bear attacks a shooter, the other shooter will move up on him and kill him. So you want to have at least 2 people that are trained and equipped. We're going to go into quite a bit about the calibers, types of ammunition, and all that stuff because people don't know. I'm standing in a gun shop, and this guy's talking to the clerk, and he says, "I'm going to be in the woods, and I have a .45 auto. I want some hollow points for it, so it can kill bears." You're upside down, man. Just that training ammunition you got's better than that. Self-defense ammunition is measured in ballistic gel in inches. Bear loads are measured in feet. We're not looking for. People will say, "Well, in the woods, I carry this instead of this because this hollow point goes 18 inches and this one only goes 15." We don't give a damn about 18 inches. We're looking for 5 feet, 6 feet. We want ammunition that'll penetrate 6 feet. We want to shoot him in the chest and have it come out his butt and make a hole in every organ in his body.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that works. Yeah.
You able to break bone potentially, you know, thicker, heavier hide.
Sure.
The content's great.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you reminded me.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah, just
I
the
will.
bladder and stuff.
I will. Thanks. Thanks a lot. I mean, I thought about it before I started, and I gotta keep thinking about it.
Well,
'cause
I know, and sitting is
conscious
harder to
effort.
do. Yeah. Well, and sitting, like I said, it's harder to do when you're up and you're walking around. It's easier to kind of be a little more.
I'll stand up some, and I'll not even
Well, it's
walk.
hard to work that though. But whatever you can do.
I will definitely work on it. Thanks, sweetie.
Okay, you're welcome. All right.
Okay. We had some people came all the way out here from Louisiana, went through the basic course, and then wanted to take this class. That's why they took the basic course, so they could take this class. But they decided I was too mean.
Remember them guys?
Yeah. Yeah, I said, you give us the dates. You got 6 people for the class, we'll build the class around you. Give us the dates. We're not coming back. Sorry, but there's a certain amount of military discipline's got to be maintained. You can't put 14 people on the firing line and have chaos because you can have an accident. So yeah, we hated to lose those guys. That would have been the basis for our class. We had 6 people. To get a couple more, we got a class. They're glad they never come to one of my police classes or one of my. I was under the Marine Corps for 7 months, and lived at Del Mar BOQ and trained Marines in hostage rescue for 7 months. In those kinds of scenarios, it's kind of like, we're God, you will do what we say, or you're out.
Yeah.
And we would throw people out.
They had strong people that already know everything.
Yes.
We're ready.
Okay. I'm not ready until I find my way to the back of the table. Can't wait to show you some of these targets we brought. All kinds of neat stuff that you're going to shoot. Would you give us that story? Yes, please.
Yeah, this has been a long time ago, probably 20, 22 years ago. I used to be a big snowmobiler, and one time, me and one friend, I was at work and I wasn't prepared. He just called me up and said, "Hey, let's go sledding," dumb guy. So I didn't do all the normal things that I would do. I didn't have water, I didn't have food. Went up Mirror Lake Highway. We took a couple wrong turns, ended up sideways. We weren't really lost, but we were up in we were fairly lost, I guess. But we were going through going from down one hill and up to another. Didn't know there was a river underneath. Wayne's sled broke through this like cornice and dropped into this river, and we spent probably an hour and a half trying to get his sled out of water that was about knee deep. But by the time we're done gunning it and pulling and tugging, we're both soaking wet. And I look at him, I'm like, "Wayne, the sun's going down. We're both soaking wet. We're not getting your sled out of here, and we're not riding out of here on my sled. So what are we going to do to keep from dying?" So we, of course, decided quickly that we needed a fire. I had no matches, neither did he. The thing that saved our lives probably was this same gentleman a couple weeks earlier when we were riding down in Cedar City. It was warm, and he kept taking his hoodie off and putting it on his header of his sled to dry it out when we would stop. And one time he forgot, closed the hood, we drove down the trail a ways, and his machine burst into flames. Remembering that, we gathered all the wood we could, and of course this is in 12 feet of snow. As soon as you stand up, you're in over your head in snow, so you're crawling around on your belly trying to get wood, which was a whole nother problem. But we were able to get enough wood together, took my t-shirt off, soaked it in gas, stealing gas from the sled, soaked the wood in gas, threw my t-shirt on my sled, and went until it burst into flames. And we spent 36 hours keeping it. It was a full-time job, trying to get, there's lots of wood up there, but it's all under 12 feet of snow. So yeah, it was a full-time job keeping the fire going, but we lived, and a helicopter spotted us because we had a fire. No fire, they would have never spotted us. There's millions of acres out there in the high Uintas, but yeah, that's my story.
Wow.
Glad you made it. So now I'm going to talk about something that's a little controversial. So don't hold me to this. Turn that recorder off.
Get that, Marcelo?
Don't record for a little bit.
Oh, you can edit it out though, right?
One thing I've done, and I've seen done by others, you're in a situation where you want to make a fire, and things are damp, whatever, you're just having trouble. You're becoming an emergency as things get worse and worse. I've taken rifle ammunition, tracers, and worked the bullet out of the casing, put it in your tinder pile, put a little gunpowder in there with it, hit a match, and hit that tracer. You can light that tracer on fire. It'll burn real fast, but it'll be real hot for a few seconds. and get your tinder going. Another thing people will do is just take the gunpowder out of a cartridge, put it in their tinder, light it off. You can see the potential for getting hurt. It's going to flash. Maybe you don't have eye protection, things like that. So if you ever found yourself in a situation, but you have ammunition, it's hard to get a pistol bullet out of a case with your hands. What you want to try to do is find a slit in a piece of wood or a rock, but a couple of rocks where there's a little gap, and use it as a leverage wedge and work it out. But if you can get that powder out, put it in your tinder, get back, and do so without burning yourself, it's going to flash and burn real hot. So it's just a way that you might get a fire going under conditions that otherwise would be difficult. Yeah, in fact, I think I just mentioned it. A guy in Utah died, just fell in the creek. Couldn't get a fire going, tried, but he couldn't get it going. Had he been able to take a cartridge, had he been armed and take a cartridge apart and sprinkle that powder in there and light it off, good chance he could have got that fire going and not died. So if you're going to do that, you'd want to wear eye protection if you have it. You'd want to wear gloves if you have them. Okay. One thing we've seen in some of these survival situations, people get lost in the outback, and after a while, not only they run out of protein, they start getting weak. They're trying to walk out, or they're trying to walk to a high ground position where their cell phone might work or whatever it is. And after a certain amount of time, they get weak because they don't have any fuel. So one of the things we mentioned is survival hunting. Kill a snake, kill a rabbit, kill something and eat it, cook it and eat it. So survival hunting is a subject all its own, but we'll just talk about it for a minute. We've seen cases where people became so weak from lack of fuel, they couldn't continue to walk out or build shelter or do much of anything. After one day without food, you start losing energy. After 2 days, you become very weak. Your firearm can provide you essential protein in an emergency. Almost any animal or reptile can be eaten. In addition to rabbits and other small game, snakes are common and a good food source. Just don't get bit. It's recommended that you bury the head away from your camp. Animals will dig that rattlesnake up and get bit. I was at a outdoor range one time. One of the biggest rattlesnakes I ever saw came across the road and was coming up to where my students were. And I shot that snake, but I had round nose .38 duty ammunition in my revolver. So it wasn't super effective. I mean, he was going to die, but not quick enough. Well, one of the guys who worked at the range came over and said, "Hey, we don't kill rattlesnakes here. They eat the mice." I said, "Well, the hawks and owls eat the mice. The non-venomous snakes eat the mice. We've got to have rattlesnakes here in our, don't kill it." And so he took that snake on a stick and put it in the field behind the range. The owner's German Shepherd found that snake, got bit on the nose, got killed. I do not share space with reptiles, venomous snakes. In Utah, the law says you may not indiscriminately kill a rattlesnake. If that snake is trying to share space with me, it's not indiscriminate. I'm going to fight that in court. But you got to be careful because a dead rattlesnake will envenomate you. So you want to bury the head.
I was cleaning my swimming pool in my backyard of my home in Draper here, and I was just sweeping leaves off this little ledge, and the snake came out of it, and this thing was twice as long as a pencil, small, and I just thought it was, we have lots of snakes up there. I'd never seen a rattlesnake, and it was a baby. And it kept coiling up. It would shake its tail rapidly and strike my broom. And it struck my broom, I'll bet you 20 times in the course of just like 10 seconds. I thought, that's so weird. That dumb little snake thinks like it's a rattlesnake or something. And then it hit me, you kind of slow and thinking. I'm like, duh, Ralph. Snakes don't think they're other snakes. This is a baby rattlesnake. And I had a shovel out there. That's all I had. And I just chopped it, honestly, in a bunch of little pieces. And I looked it up online, and it was a baby rattlesnake. If that thing would have bit me, is its venom still good to go at that young age?
Now, there's a rumor, there's an old wives' tale that the baby snakes are more deadly because they don't know to control their venom and they just they let it all go. That's just not true. The fact is, but they will envenomate you.
This thing was ferocious. It struck again and again, and I kept sweeping it back because it didn't have a lot of range because it was so small. But it had acted exactly like a big one. And I would have easily.
A rattlesnake can strike between 1/3 and 1/2 of its length. So an 8-foot snake could strike 4 feet, half its, or close to it. The biggest rattlesnake ever measured was 8 feet long. So that if it could strike on the high side of that number, the 4 foot, the 50%, that means the biggest rattlesnake ever could strike 4 feet. So if you can get 10 feet from a rattlesnake, you're pretty safe. And I've had rattlesnakes that didn't care that I was there. I mean, they were coming towards me and they didn't stop. They just, I had to get out of their way.
Are they very fast?
They can move pretty good. Move pretty fast. But anyway, what some places do is when they kill a rattlesnake is they flush the head down the toilet. So they don't have to worry that a dog is going to find it or whatever, and somebody's going to get envenomated. If you're going to bury it deep because you don't want a dog digging it up. Again, in that emergency where you run out of protein and you're trying to rescue yourself, frogs and turtles and lizards and those things can all be eaten. Cook the meat well to kill parasites. And wash your hands after preparing if you can, if it's practical. If you're out there and all you got's a little drinking water, well, you're probably not going to be able to wash your hands. But if you prepare an animal that you killed in the wild, you should try to wash your hands if possible. If you shoot small game, try to shoot them in the head so that you maximize the available meat. If you shoot a rabbit in the head, you get the whole rabbit that you can eat, right? And sometimes in one of these survival situations, a person will see a big animal like a deer. If your life is on the line, you're in danger of dying if you don't get rescued, and you pass up that deer because you don't want to waste it, you may regret that decision. It may be that you should take that deer, eat as much as you can, smoke some of the meat so that you can it'll keep for a day or so. If you kill a large animal, cook and eat all you can, then smoke the remaining meat to postpone spoilage. Now, this is going to lead us into a subject. How many of you are familiar with handgun shot shells? Usually we show them to you at the basic class. Usually Ron will pass one around or something. How many of you have some in your possession at home now for use in this class? What we would like you to do to maximize what you get out of this class, we want you to have a box of CCI handgun snake shot in your caliber, whatever caliber you're going to shoot in the class, one box of CCI, 10 rounds, and one box of double tap ammo. Double tap ammo down here in Cedar City. They're about the only other company that makes snake shot. If you and get a box of 6 or 10 rounds from them, I forget, I think it's 10 in a box. And if you have a box of CCI and a box of double tap, we're going to do tests with your ammunition out of your gun, and you're going to shoot targets. I'll show you some of these targets. You're going to shoot targets at an exact distance. You're going to see which one of these two loads in your gun gets better pattern and better penetration. And then from then on, if you're going to carry a gun in snake country, you'll know which one to get. I'll show you some targets here and how this goes. So we go to, where do we get these targets made, Steve? Alpha Graphics. So we go to Alpha Graphics and we give them a picture of a rattlesnake, and they make it into targets. So each of you, go ahead and pass it around. Each of you will have several rattlesnake targets, so we can test your gun and test these two different types of ammunition. So what we have here is targets. Okay, we've been talking about shooting a critter so we can eat it, so that we can get protein and maybe hike out. So you will have a rabbit target. You'll shoot it at a given distance, and you'll see how effective or ineffective a handgun snake shot is on small game. So if you look at these on the back, it says 44 Magnum at 30 feet. And this was a hand load. It gives the load, the powder, the wad, everything that's in there. And if you look at it carefully, you'll see small holes. The small holes, in other words, it's like a miniature shotgun. So you're going to get whatever size snake shot is in the cartridge. So go ahead and pass that. See, what is this one? Yeah, another rabbit. You read the stuff on the back if you're so interested. Another one. Okay, we'll leave the rest of the rabbits here. Enough rabbits. Now we have some rattlesnake targets. This says Glock 17, 9mm, 6 feet, CCI factory, aimed at the head. 10 or 11 pellets hit the head. One of the most effective CCI ammunition, snake shot ammunition, the 45 auto is probably the best. It gives the best patterns. It seems to do the best. This is a rabbit shot with a 45 ACP CCI snake shot.
You want us to pass these down?
Sure.
They already got a rabbit.
Yeah, just that one.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That's a hand loaded thing. 44 mag. If you turn it over and look on the back, you can see the exit holes, and it gives you a little better picture of the group.
Yeah, does that have a ball as well as the?
Some of them do.
Yeah, it looks like a ball and the small beads or the small BBs.
Yeah, it's a hand load.
That's a hand load. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, I loaded that one.
Mm. Yeah, that's a beaut right there. There's the head.
Okay, so when you get done, we'll pick them up down here. So to get the most out of this course, you need 2 small boxes of 10 rounds each of snake shot, because we're going to do a whole bunch of testing. And if you order, you go and you can, or what?
So Double Tap, I checked Double Tap. They're not open until Monday, and on their website, I wasn't able to locate that particular load. So I wonder if we need to call them, or we could maybe send Rick, because he's still in Arizona. That's why he's not here today. And then how many of them were we gonna need?
Each person, we would like each person to have 1 box of CCI, 1 box of Double Tap.
Right. So what I'm saying right now is I don't know about the Double Tap, because it's not like they can go on there and order it right now. I wasn't able to find it on
Well, they can order it Monday because they only need it by Friday.
Okay. I mean, if it will get here.
So anyway, we'd like you to make an effort. We will take from our stock. If you can't get it, we will try to supply it from what we have at home. But we're gonna hopefully, some of you will be able to get
Yeah.
it. So
Just let us know what you can find out on Monday, but call them. And then, we can see where maybe it's going to be. Because won't be there until after the class. But we'll see what we can do, because that's our fault. We were going to try to send that out to you guys last year, and I just forgot. So. Yeah. Of that snake shot?
Yeah, they had
But they did. Where is it?
It was.
What is it? What is it called? Because I couldn't find it.
It's snake shot.
I looked up snake shot.
And let's see if I can find it.
Because then you could order it now.
well, that's probably
Looks like the 9mm is available, but I don't know. It says 1 business day shipping. From Double Tap Ammo. Is that right?
yeah.
145 grains. Is that the right stuff?
Did you look under bullet type or?
Yeah, under bullet type on Double Tap. Well, no, it had 9mm, 10mm, and 45 ACP snake shot.
$30 for the shipping?
No, $30
Oh.
for the box.
Yeah, that's about what
145 grain, second whole point. That's just a 9.
they will give you on the box, they'll give you the payload. So what it'll do is it'll say, let's just for a second, okay. One concern that we have with the snake shot for the woodsman is if your gun's loaded with snake shot because you've got a lot of rattlesnakes in where you are, and then you get facing an animal, mountain lion or wild dog or, rabid dog or a bad guy. All you've got is these little BBs. The Double Tap version, it has a full wad cutter bullet and the BBs. And that full wad cutter will penetrate 12 inches of ballistic gel, so it's very lethal, and it meets the FBI requirements for self-defense ammo. So the Double Tap ammo, snake shot, they sell it as snake shot / self-defense ammo. In fact, the 2 of those 38s that often stick in my pocket are loaded with that ammunition right now. So it's good. It's adequate for self-defense and for snakes.
Cool. That's both.
And it says on the box, it'll say payload. It'll give you the weight of the bullet, the full wide cutter, and then they give you the weight of the number 9 shot. So you know what the total payload is.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really hard to find it, but camera and like type in double tap ammo snake shot, and then it does still take you to the website, but it's too directly to the snake shot.
So we've got a couple boxes, we've got a couple boxes of 9mm that we would.
Yeah, try to get it if you can, but let us know if you can't.
Yeah, we'll give you enough to do but you know, we can't give everybody in the class enough to do everything, but we'll try to help you out. But if you can get it, that would be great. And you should be able to find, there's a lot of mail order places where you can get the CCI. Pretty common.
Is the double tap better than the CCI?
Well, that's what we're going to find out.
Okay.
We're going to test in your gun. What we want to do is test both loads in your gun for penetration and pattern. So if we get the ammo, then we'll be able to do that.
So is there any concern with the little BBs messing with your rifling?
No, no.
Okay.
They're soft lead. They don't do
They
anything.
won't hurt your barrel at all.
Nope, not a bad.
Good question.
Yeah, worry about that.
They might leave some traces of lead in there, just like if you shot lead bullets.
Okay.
But you scrub them out just like you clean your gun with a brush. So if we get it to work out, and when we're done, every one of you will say, with the CCI, I got X amount of penetration. I got an 8-inch pattern. With the double tap, I got this. So I think I want to use this one. You know, and then that will be your woods, your snake load for woods, desert. There's been one self-defense shooting with it. I believe it was in 38 Special. The full wide cutter went right through and exited, killed him. In addition, he had a whole bunch of shotgun pellets that he was bleeding from. The shotgun pellets in ballistic gelatin are going about 4 inches or more. So they're serious. You know, they're adding to the performance. Okay, any questions? Another thing, CCI, excuse me, I have a list in here of all the different calibers that CCI makes snake shot for. And I also have a list for double tap ammo. Their list is longer. Double tap ammo makes snake shot in more calibers than CCI does. Survival fishing. Fishing with a pistol or rifle or shotgun. In a survival situation, the rules of fair chase and sportsmanship do not apply. Right? People say, well, it's against the law to shoot fish. If you're in a survival situation, you're not likely to care about being cited for shooting a fish. So how do we do that? How do we shoot a fish? Where water refracts. Having shot numerous sharks from the dive boat, I could actually watch the bubble trail of the projectile and see how the refraction affects or relates to the path of the bullet. So what we suggest in order to simplify this, well, guys that shoot fish with archery, they've got a whole formula. The angle, the distance, the depth, all this stuff they plug in and figure out where to hold. We're not going to do that. Rule of thumb, aim at the bottom of the fish just below his head. Hitting the surface at a shallow, no, bullets can ricochet off water. If a bullet hits the surface of the water at a fairly shallow angle, it could ricochet off and go who knows where. So you want to be careful with that. I should have some pictures here. So where's the fish? Is this the head? Is this the? Oh. Okay. So aiming right below his head is where you're gonna try and shoot. Where's my readers? I had them. That's okay. I got them in the car. I'll get them in. Wait. Oh, that's not it. I'll get them in a minute. So, okay, here's your fish. Here's the head, aiming just below the head. On the sharks, we would shoot them in the gills. That seemed to mess them up right immediately. Anyway, so if you were in a survival situation, you were trying to get something to eat, you could see fish in shallow water, should be able to shoot one. Sometimes the concussion of that bullet hitting the water will stun the fish. But if you get the gills, you get the head, you should get the fish. Now, how do we signal for help? Okay, remember, this is a survival class. How do we signal for help? Well, anything we do 3 of is supposed to be a signal that we need help. Whether it's blow or whistle 3 times, fire 3 shots, whatever it is. But you fire 3 shots, now what do? Just sit and wait? Do you fire more? There's no system. I've seen people refer to using your firearm to signal for help, but there's nothing that follows that up. They just say fire 3 shots. So we came up with a system. We suggest this. Fire 3 shots, wait 3 minutes. Fire 3 shots, wait 3 minutes. Fire 3 shots, wait 3 minutes. And if no return signal is heard, then fire 3 shots every hour on the hour thereafter. So fire 3 shots, wait 3 minutes, try that about 3 times. Somebody hears 3 shots, they may or may not assume you're in trouble. But when they hear 3 shots and then a little while they hear 3 shots and then, in a pattern, that's going to be obvious somebody needs help. And if you don't hear anything after you've done this, just on the hour, from then on the hour, every hour, on the hour, fire 3 more shots. In 12 hours, using this system, you will have fired 45 rounds. So that suggests you might want to carry a sufficient amount of ammunition. Then the person that hears you, maybe a hunter or somebody out there, or a rescuer that hears, they fire 1 shot. That's to tell you that they're looking for you. They've heard your signal and they're looking for you. They fire 1 shot. And then you fire 1, and then you wait. Every time the searchers fire another shot to check direction, you respond with 1 shot until you are found. So I think having this is where a 22 rimfire would be good because you can carry a lot of ammo. But I could see someone following this system in a day or so, they'd use up 75 rounds. Most people aren't going to carry that much ammunition. And so what would you do when you run out of ammunition? First, I wouldn't shoot my last cartridge because I would maintain enough ammunition to defend myself. So if I had a revolver, I'd at least keep 6 rounds. Now, I've used up all my ammunition. What am I going to do? Yes, I'm going to resort to my next best available system. So whether that's a whistle, whatever it is, maybe making a fire. Here's something you may not have thought of. You know what tracer ammunition is? The cartridge, the base of the projectile is hollowed out, and inside there is red magnesium, usually red magnesium. When you fire it, when you shoot that projectile, when you shoot that cartridge, the heat and fire from the burning powder will light that magnesium, and it will burn for a few seconds. So you could fire those up straight up, and it would work like a poor man's flare. So if somebody sees 3 tracers in the air, they're probably going to call it in. If you got a call in and they're just trying to find you, there's a helicopter out there, there's an airplane out there looking for you. You fire 3 tracers in a position and location where the aircraft crew should be able to see you, and they can find you that way. Now, here's the deal. In Utah, you can have tracers. In California, the mere possession of tracers is a crime. So you have to check your state laws and make sure that it's not a felony just to have the ammunition. What I do is generally have a magazine of tracers. So if I was going to try and signal for help, I would switch and fire my 3 shots with tracers until I ran out of them. They're most effective late in the afternoon or after early in the morning when the sun's not high in the sky. They're easier to see. You can also take a tracer, remove the bullet from the casing, put it in your fire and light it off, and it will help you get a fire going. So tracers have some value. But I would never shoot up all my ammunition signaling. I'd keep some ammunition to defend myself. $75 rounds. If you could carry 75 rounds of ammunition, that'd be a box and a half. You know, that's quite a bit of weight. But if you could signal, you could do a lot of signaling for a long time if you had 75 rounds of ammunition. Now here's some people say, well, tracers start fires. Yes, because people put targets in the dead, dry bushes and then shoot right into them from close range. I've lit those tracers off with a match. I can tell you they only burn for a second or two. But if you shoot that upward, it's going 1,000 feet a second. And so in 2 seconds, it's at 2,000 feet and it's out. It's done burning. And that's still going up. So it's in a giant wind tunnel. So as it falls at 200 miles an hour, it's cooling off. You should be able to pick it up. The chances of that, shooting those rounds up in the sky, having them come down and land on the ground hot and start a fire, it's just about 0. There was a couple of people that got lost in Palm Springs in the mountains, and they accidentally started a fire. And they were just about to die. They were starving to death. A little bit more story, make it interesting. They get themselves in this canyon, and the sides are so steep they were able to go down to get there, but they couldn't climb out. Try as they might, they could not climb out. And so they're searching the area where they are, and they find a tent. And in the tent, they find a skeleton. You see that one? And there's a with the skeleton is a diary. And the diary explains this guy came in here, couldn't climb out, and died. And now and so they're like, well, we're next. So they start a fire, a forest fire. And when the people come to fight the forest fire, they find the people and rescue them. And so otherwise there would have been 3 skeletons there. So just something to think about. So tracers are not going to be as visible as flares, but especially at certain times, certain lighting conditions, they're going to be very visible. I've had countless tracers shot at me, and I can tell you they were very visible. They looked like burning tennis balls. Just that little bit of magnesium that's in the base of that tracer bullet. So, I think let's see if we covered it. What calibers can we obtain tracer ammunition in? 9mm, 380, 7.62 by 51, 7.62 by 39, 223, 5.56 millimeter. But 45 also ACP. I think I've got a list on here somewhere. I would say not very much. Fire your Yes, sir.
When you just started this little section, you began with the 3 shots, and then what do you do? And then 3 shots, and what do you do? Until you came up with that, somebody came up with an answer, and you said that we've come up with a system of 3 shots, wait 3 minutes, 3 shots, wait 3 minutes. Do that until you're running short of ammunition.
Yeah, once you do that 3 times and you get no response, then go to the top of the hour.
Okay.
Now once an hour, 3 shots.
Right. My question is this in every survival piece of literature now?
The 3 shots,
When you say we've come up with a system, who's we?
me,
Okay.
3 shots is universal.
Okay.
So people are going to get, you're going to get if someone hears 3 shots, they are probably going to wonder, is somebody shooting 3 times at an animal or is somebody in trouble? And then pretty soon they hear 3 again. Pretty soon the slowest person out there is going to figure out this is a pattern, and it's not just somebody screwing around. It sounds like somebody's trying to get help. But this has never been published anywhere, just something I made up.
All right. That was my question.
Okay. Don't shoot too close to search aircraft. Yeah, that'd be bad. I could see the guy going, he almost hit us with that one. I'm not sure I want to even report this guy. The trace is only going to burn for a second or 2. It's just a flash. But that projectile is going to go maybe 1,000 feet in 1 second, right? So the chance that it's going to, it's going to get pretty high before it goes out. If it burns for 2 seconds, it goes 2,000 feet above your elevation you fired it from. That's pretty good. If it burns 3 seconds, then it's going to go close to 3,000 feet. Used in this manner, the tracers should constitute virtually no fire hazard. But people shooting them into bushes have started a lot of fires, so naturally the authorities are a little concerned about them. So You can buy them online, except but not in some states. But you can buy them in Utah online. 45, 9, 38 special, 40 Smith & Wesson, yeah. And you can shoot 40 Smith & Wesson in a 10 millimeter in an emergency. So if you had a 10 millimeter, you could get 40 Smith & Wesson tracers. 380, I've seen them in 44 Magnum, but not recently. So here's some of the different rifle ammunition we mentioned already. 357 Magnum, of course, is both a revolver cartridge and a rifle cartridge. Very popular lever action rifle cartridge. By the way, how many of you have a 10 millimeter? Anybody? If 10 millimeter is your woods handgun, the caliber you carry for the woods, Ruger is coming out with a 10 millimeter carbine that takes Glock magazines. Yeah, and that's going to be a game changer for the 10 millimeter boys. So if you want to use the same ammo, I always like the concept of carrying carbine and handgun in the same caliber if I can. 44 Magnum revolver and a 44 Magnum lever action, you know, stuff like that. So this is the list. Calibers that we have found tracer ammunition for. Okay, again, I remind you, in some states, the mere possession of tracer ammunition is a crime. So I'd be a little reluctant. If it saved your life, that's fine, but more likelihood you might get arrested before you get in trouble, before you get lost. All right, we're going to talk about handguns for predator defense. 3 basic types. We're going to just divide all these different kinds of handguns: double action auto, single action, striker fired, hammer fired. Just going to boil this down to 3 things: auto pistol, single action revolver, and double action revolver. These are going to be the 3 general types of weapon we're going to briefly talk about. Now, we've mentioned rifles a little bit before. I would tend to prefer a lever action. Semi-auto's good, but the lever action is almost as fast as a semi-auto, and it has some other advantages. The general advantages of a revolver for a woods gun. What we see is not infrequently, people end up wrestling with a bear. If a bear hits somebody, gets them down and starts mauling them. Sometimes they're kicking, they're trying to punch them in the nose, different things. In a fight, in a struggle, you can take a revolver, shove it into the target and pull the trigger, it's going to fire. Not only is it going to fire, but the gas jet's going to go in behind the bullet and do even more damage. Can't do that with a semi-auto, because when you push the muzzle of the semi-auto against an object, it will unlock the slide, internal safety will engage, the gun will not fire. So this is one advantage of the revolver for a woods gun. The semi-auto can only shoot projectiles or cartridges that develop a certain amount of recoil and energy. They have to have a minimum amount of energy to make the gun function, and then they have a maximum on the other end. With a revolver, the mechanics is all power. The power is all from your finger. Your finger is what makes all the action happen in the revolver. In the auto pistol, it's the recoil that makes the action happen. So you have to have a certain amount of recoil to make the auto pistol function. With the revolver, you're the power. So you have a much wider range of ammunition. You can go down, if it'll get out the barrel, you're good to go. So you have a very wide range of ammunition, real light target loads, small game loads, whatever, up to Magnum. Also on the high end, we generally find the most powerful calibers that are available are in the revolver. So in the auto pistol, we've got 45 auto plus P, we've got 10 millimeter, and those are really pretty much what there is. Anything in an auto other than those two calibers is going to be some oddball, hand-loaded, who knows what. 45, 10 millimeter. In the revolver, we can go 357 Magnum, which is the ballistic equivalent of the 10 millimeter, all the way up to the 480 Ruger, 44 mag, 454 Casull. We'll talk about these a little bit more later on. But you can go much higher in the power. You can get revolvers that are twice as powerful as a 10 millimeter. So then with the auto pistol, you say, well, I've got 16 shots. With a revolver, I might have 5 or 6 or maybe 7. So there's different considerations. If you want something that'll lay a bear out, like a 480 Ruger or 454 Casull, these are not guns for amateurs. These guns recoil viciously. And these are flinch makers. I know with a 454, I'm aware of 2 cases. One was a woman and one was a teenage boy, where they shot a 454 Casull and it came back and crushed their skull and killed them. These guns are not for amateurs. So there's pros and cons. Yeah, I like to have a lot of horsepower. I want to lay that bear flat, but there's too much of a good thing sometimes, you know. Another thing is with the revolver, you can carry different kinds of ammo in the chambers. I could carry 3 snake loads and 3 bear loads if I wanted to, or 2 snake loads and 4 bear loads. And then I just turned the cylinder to set the cylinder so that the next one up is what I want it to be. Everybody follow? So this is more versatility that we get with the auto pistol. Auto pistols generally have better triggers. Revolvers generally have better triggers if you cock them. Because your double action revolver can be trigger cocked, right? Your finger, or you can thumb cock the hammer and set it, and now you've got like about a 3-pound trigger. Generally better than you're going to find on an auto pistol. But if you're going to shoot the revolver in double action, if you're going to trigger cock, probably got 12 pounds and a long throw, the auto's better. Because the auto's going to have maybe 6 pounds and a short throw. So everything has its place. Somebody in that class that was from where we were talking to I was talking with one of you guys that came from Louisiana. One of those guys wanted to know, is a single action revolver okay or is it too antiquated? Single action revolvers are great and they have advantages over other guns. Single action revolver means the only way to shoot it is cock it first, then press the trigger. If you just press the trigger, it's not going to cock the gun. So it's a single action. Thumb cock and then press your shot. Some advantages that the gun have, they tend to be rugged and they're easier to shoot. If I have a 44 mag double action and a 44 mag single action, I much prefer to shoot the single action gun. Because of the shape of the grip frame, what they used to call a plow handle or something. Anyway, the gun rolls up in your hand. With the 44 mag Smith, it's going to just come back and pound you. By the time you fire 6 rounds, you're done. Okay, my fun meter's pegged. I'm done with this. Whereas with the single action, the gun will roll up in your hand. The muzzle goes up, and it doesn't hurt. So it takes the sting out of it, but it also takes a little longer to recover and shoot again. So pros and cons. The single action is very rugged, very simple. We have millions of cowboy action shooters out there. Stacy and I did cowboy action for about 20 years, close to it. So if you're a cowboy action shooter and every Saturday you go and shoot a match shooting single action revolvers and you know those guns like the back of your hand, then that would probably be a recommendation. I'd probably carry the single action revolver. The downside is you've got to eject those cases one at a time and then reload the chambers one at a time. That takes a while. So if you can't resolve your problem with what's in the gun, you may have trouble buying enough time to reload it. That's the biggest drawback of the single action revolver. But you can shoot anything in it. It'll shoot the lightest loads, or you can get a single action revolver in huge, big, massive calibers. They're often less expensive than a good double action revolver. And they look cool. They're cowboy guns. What else? What could be better? They're not as offensive. Some people would be put off if they saw you were carrying a Glock. You know, some maybe campers or stuff. And they might not have a problem with your cowboy gun, you know. I've got some stories about that. I got a quick one. So I'm on a river raft trip with friends and my ex. And we were not allowed to take guns. I'd take a gun anyway, of course. But all I took was a 4-inch 38 Model 64 Smith & Wesson stainless police gun. This is one of the guns I was authorized to carry on duty. And so anyway, I'm carrying it on this river raft trip because it's stainless steel. I didn't care if it got wet, you know, that kind of thing. But I had to keep it hidden because I wasn't supposed to have a gun. So when we go all day, and now we set up camp for the night, and the guides tell us, now don't go, if you got to urinate or whatever, don't go walking off in the woods, because just today there were bears in this campsite. Well, these people freaked out. Bears were in this campsite today? Yeah. They were just beside themselves. And the one woman was almost in tears, and my ex tells her, don't worry, my husband has a gun. Freaking idiot. Anyway, so now she tells everybody, all the campers want to sleep next to me. I guarantee you, if those Californiaites would have known ahead of time that I had a gun, they'd have reported me to the guide and tried to get me kicked off the trip. Now they all want to be with me. So I learned a couple of lessons. One, if you're in bear country, carry something better than a 38. Next time I went in bear country, I had a 44 mag with me. Yeah, there you go. Well, DA revolvers. For a double action revolver, you can get speed loaders so you can eject all your cases simultaneously and then load all your cartridges simultaneously. It's not as fast as an auto pistol, but it's faster than a single action revolver. Auto pistols. The most popular handgun of any sort in the woods in Alaska, woods gun in Alaska today. The woods gun for Alaska today is a Glock 10 millimeter pistol, semi-auto. Most popular bear defense gun in a place where bears chew up a lot of people. The advantages of the auto pistol is faster to reload. It's easy to put night sights on an auto pistol, generally speaking. You can normally mount a illumination flashlight on your auto pistol. Not so easy with a revolver. You can mount a laser sight. So over here I've got a camper who's being mauled by a bear. There's a wrestling match going on. Then the camper's losing, obviously. If I've got a laser aiming device, I can just move in there as long as I get that dot where it's supposed to be. It might otherwise be hard to shoot the bear and not shoot my fellow camper. So the laser aiming device, which I normally don't get too excited about, in that kind of a situation, you know, it's you're hands-on. That might be advantageous. An auto pistol is mechanically more reliable than a revolver. Oh, no, no, no. My granddaddy told me revolvers are much more reliable. Are there more malfunctions with a auto? Yep. And you know what they are? Everyone, almost 99% of them. Shooter induced. If you take out the shooter induced from the stats, the auto is more reliable than the revolver is. But it's easy to create a malfunction with your auto pistol when you're not well trained. All you got to do is put 2 thumbs on the side of the slide, and you can eject your magazine and recoil. You can lock your slide open and recoil. You can cause all kind of malfunctions if you don't do it right. Revolvers, you have no such issues. There are not a bunch of shooter-induced malfunctions that people cause with revolvers. Another thing, you drop your revolver in the sand along the side of the creek there. You got to get sand inside that action. It's going to be a problem. With a revolver, an auto pistol, you can just field strip it, dunk it in the stream, wash it off, put it back together. Autos tend to be more forgiving of abuse, dirt, sand, and all that stuff. Handgun hunting suggests a 6 to 10 inch barrel. If you are on offense, you're going to go take a bear, elk or a deer or something else with your handgun. You're hunting with a handgun. You probably want at least a 6 inch barrel, anywhere from about 6 to 10, so you get more velocity, more energy, and what else? Oh, longer sight radius, different advantages. So a 10-inch barrel for protection, for bear protection, you end up in a struggle with the bear, that's going to be in the way. You want something more like a 4 or 5 inch barrel. That's what we recommend. Four to 5.5 inch barrel for revolvers. For defense against predatory animals. As I just say predatory animals, I'm reminded, black bears tend to kill people to eat them. Grizzly bears kill people because they're territorial, because they're protecting cubs, protecting a kill. But black bears tend to kill people because they want to eat them. A lot of people think that black bears aren't dangerous. They're mistaken. So here's, yeah.
To that point, do you want me to mention the incident in Florida?
Yeah, go ahead.
In the last week or so, Florida had recorded their first ever fatal bear attack, a black bear. There were a couple of black bears in the area, and it actually went inside the guy's house trailer and dragged him out, mauled him to death, and his dog. Black bears to that point. I mean, he was eating them, and they are dangerous.
Absolutely.
They didn't have an exact sequence of events because there's nobody there to see it, but he was attacked in the house and dragged out about 100 yards from the house.
Truck campers, hard shell truck campers,
came through the window, grabbed the girl, and drug her out and killed her. Mentioned a lot of years ago.
Yeah.
Do you think you can save them?
Yeah, they get into people's homes, they get into schools, they get into stores, and sometimes they'll go in there and kill 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, or 3 or 4 dead and 3 or 4 maimed. And we're going to talk about some of the injuries we see in the bear attacks. Anyway, if you go on it, so most of you, all of you have been through our 4-day pistol. Some of you will probably seek and attend more training, and you're attending more training right now. So an auto pistol like what you've been training with would be logical. You've been shooting a Glock 9mm, a Glock 10mm might be just right up your alley, because all the skills and manipulation and everything you learned with your 9mm will carry over to the 10mm. The only difference is going to be a little more recoil. So Glock 10mm is a good choice, especially if you've had some professional training on the Glock pistols. A 1911 and 10mm, you give up a couple of rounds, but it's got a grip frame that tends to fit people's hands well. The Glock 21, which is a 45 ACP, it's the Glock auto pistol in 10mm and the Glock auto pistol in 45 auto are almost identical guns. A lot of the parts are interchangeable. The only downside to the Glock 10mm and 45 is girth. You got to have a pretty big hand to handle it. It's a big grip frame, and a lot of people find it uncomfortable. So some people don't want that big grip frame. They don't like how it feels. They don't shoot it well. They want something else. Then we might go down to a Glock 35, which is a 40 Smith & Wesson. You're definitely giving up some power, but we've had a lot of bears killed with a 40 Smith & Wesson. The key is the right ammo. With all of these things, even more important than caliber is that you're using the right kind of ammunition. So Glock 35 or 31 and 357 SIG, again, medium-sized grip frame, not as much power as a 10, but a lot more than a 9. Single action revolvers, we like Ruger Blackhawks and Super Blackhawks. We've got a boatload of them. Ruger makes within reasonable price limits, Ruger makes the best single action revolvers out there. There's one company that makes a $2,000 or $3,000 single action revolver. I'm sure what's that? Oh, is it in there?
It's right there.
Freedom Arms. Yeah, Freedom Arms 454 Casull. I think that's a couple $1,000 gun. And it's probably almost certainly a better gun than a Ruger, but Ruger makes an excellent revolver. Double action revolvers, we recommend Smith & Wesson. Ruger makes a good one, and they're very rugged. But the Smith & Wesson has got a smoother gun with a smoother action. It's easier to shoot well. So any of these will do. The Ruger Red Hawk. This gun, they make, Ruger makes a Red Hawk 45 Colt caliber. It will shoot 45 Colt plus P, which is a ballistic twin to the 44 Magnum. 45 Colt plus P is ballistically identical to bullet weight, caliber, or bullet weight, velocity, and energy. So with the 45 Colt, you got the plus P, standard 45 Colts pressure, and you can shoot, CCI makes an excellent 45 Colt snake load. 454 Casull, it's a great gun. It's about half again as powerful as a 44 mag, but the recoil is vicious. It's, I hesitate to tell people to go out and buy one because A lot of people will buy one. You see these used in the store all the time with a box of cartridges and six empty cases in the box, you know. They fired it 6 times, took it back to the store, said, give me something else. What were you going to say, Ron?
You can shoot the 45 Colt options in the 454 Casull.
Yes. You can shoot 45 Smith & Wesson, 45 Colt plus P, and 454. So you could own a 454 and use it 45 Colt ammunition in it plus Ps and give yourself 44 Magnum performance and never use a 454, or reserve the 454 in case you go to the Arctic for polar bears or something. You know, use it. Another thing that I've considered is these guns that are so powerful that if you shot a couple of rounds, you'd be flinching. You can carry the lighter load up to the last round. Set the cylinder so the last round is going to be the heavy one. So shooting that heavy one isn't going to make you flinch on the next round in the cylinder. There are no more rounds in the cylinder. What it's going to tell you is, by the way, you need to reload, dumbass. Right? When you feel that, when it goes like this, it's telling you reload your gun. And at least for that one shot, you're getting that extra power on target. It's the versatility of revolvers. Quickly go through some of this. Selecting, firearm selection. What is your tolerance for recoil? How much weight are you willing to carry every day? If your gun is too big, it ends up getting locked away. You leave it in the truck, whatever. Not practical. Yeah, you're trained with semi-autos, you've been to school, you're probably going to take more classes in the future, then that would probably be the way to go. Probably a 10 millimeter is probably the best thing for you. Snakes. If the area where you hike and whatnot has a lot of rattlesnakes, you want to make sure that the caliber handgun you carry, you can buy snake shot for it. It's available. And most calibers it is. What if you're an equestrian? What's an equestrian? Somebody who rides horses, right? We would recommend the single action revolver. Not an auto, not a double action. The reason being, you shoot in self-defense from the horse. Horse isn't trained for that. The horse starts jumping, whatever. There have been people that when the horse started jumping, they pulled the trigger again and killed the horse. So you want a single action revolver because if you've shot it, until you thumb cock it again, it won't shoot again. So you're not going to have an accidental discharge if the horse starts jumping. So we recommend single action revolver for horse people. I just put this on you. In the state of Florida, 49 people were attacked by alligators last year. 27 of them died. Alligators are easy to kill and they're difficult to kill. I'll show you why in a minute. A 9mm with practice ammo, full metal jacket, will definitely kill an alligator, but you got to hit the spot. We'll show you where the spot is. Only 8 people a year in the U.S. die from rattlesnake or snake bite. How come so few? Helicopters and anti-venom. I never did get my glasses. Yeah, although only 8 Americans are killed by rattlesnake bite every year, 20 more are crippled. They lose a hand, a foot, an arm, a leg, Do coyotes ever kill people? There was a folk singer in Canada got killed by a pack of coyotes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It doesn't work. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. The prescription's not right for me. I got some in the car. I'll get them on the break. Thank you very much. How about wolves? Wolf attacks are very rare, but we did have, we had one a couple years ago. A kid got dragged out of his tent by a wolf. Bears kill how many people in the U.S. a year? 10, 12? How many do dogs kill? 35. 35 Americans are killed by dogs every year. The winner is still snakes. 127,000, 172,000. There have been two big studies done by organizations that keep track of such things. One of them said 182,000, the other said 162,000. So I just say, we'll take the difference. So I just say 172,000. Don't need this. You don't need that. In 2009, there were 62,000 crimes reported in state parks. That's a 250% increase in 10 years. In 2012, there were 3,657 serious crimes reported in national parks. These included murder, rape, robbery, stolen cars, arson, aggravated assault. Thank you. So, you know, people think, well, we'll go to the woods or the campground where it'll be safe, you know. The low cost of a camping vacation sometimes attracts low life. Criminals know there is limited law enforcement available in these campgrounds. Criminals appreciate seclusion. In 2014, the National Park Service reported 360 violent crimes. Now, what are these two numbers for? The 360 are for the park, and this is for Indian reservation, 5,381. And the National Park Service in the parks, 16 murders. Indian reservation, 75. 83 rapes, 863 rapes. 62 robberies in the national park, 300 in the Indian. 200 aggravated assaults, 4,014. Almost 5,000 property crimes, 24,000. 69 arsons, 877 arsons. What the hell? Burglaries, 645. Burglaries, 5,305. Note the number on the right are for Indian reservations only. So if your primary criminals, if your primary concern is for crime, does you want to wear a gun in the woods because you're worried about being victimized by drug smugglers or people transporting illegal things you just happen to come in contact with, or armed robbers, rapists? Recommendations: flat shooting pistol to extend your range past 100 yards, any semi-auto pistol of at least 9mm. Any revolver, at least 357 mag. How many of you know what a 357 SIG is? 327 SIG is a 40 Smith & Wesson necked down to 36 cal. So it's a bottleneck like a rifle. So you've got a lot of powder and got a nice big combustion chamber. And you're shooting 9mm bullets with a 357 pressure behind it. Revolvers are less efficient for combat due to lower capacity and slower reloading. An auto pistol is preferred if your primary concern is people. Semi-automatic rifle or carbine. I think a carbine that shoots your pistol cartridge is a really good thing. You've got to, okay. You know, your pistol, you have a 9mm pistol. There's several companies make excellent 9mm carbines. So being able to use the same ammunition in both weapons has been appreciated for a long time. In the Old West days, it was a 4440. Winchester made the lever action rifle in 4440, and Colt made the revolver in 44.
They make a 10mm rifle?
Yes. I think Ruger is just coming out with one right now. And it takes, I think, Glock 17 and Glock 22 not 22. Glock makes a high cap magazine more than the 17 rounder. It's a 22, I think it's a 30 round 9mm mag. I think they make a 30 round. Yeah. So if you got a 9mm carbine, you'd probably want to get a couple of those 30 round mags. Best handgun caliber for brown bear, moose. By the way, more people are actually injured every year by moose than by bears, strangely enough. Large caliber Magnum revolver is probably your best option. Again, we already talked about the advantages of an auto pistol for a lot of people. 44 mag, 45 Colt, 45 Casull, 480 Ruger, these are cannons. Recommend a 4, 5 to 6 inch barrel. Dangerous game. If you were going to go hunt bears or moose or something really big, I'd just take a 45-70. Any of these calibers would do. Pistol caliber carbines are often overlooked, and they can be very versatile. When you go from a 4-inch barrel to a 16 or 20-inch barrel, you pick up a lot of velocity, generally. Now, there are some ammunition is loaded light and low pressure. You don't gain maybe no velocity with a longer barrel. But in your more high pressure combat rounds and hunting rounds, those higher pressure rounds, you put them in a 16-inch barrel, you get a huge jump in power. And I think of it like this: a 44 mag fired out of a rifle is like a 454 Casull. It's like a whole jump up in levels of power, which is one of the reasons that carrying a pistol caliber carbine is appropriate. If a 357 Magnum revolver is a 50-yard deer cartridge, a 357 carbine is a 125-yard deer cartridge. You're picking up a bunch, hundreds of feet per second. These pistol caliber carbines are easy to shoot, very fast on follow-up shots. And you can see the obvious advantage of carrying a pistol caliber carbine in the same caliber as your sidearm, and even in many cases, not only is it the same caliber, but it takes the same magazine. That's a big deal. Every year they come out with more pistol caliber carbines. .357 Magnum fired out of a 16-inch barrel gives you 44 Magnum revolver power. It takes you that whole step up. .40 Smith & Wesson carbine in a carbine is about like a 10mm pistol. So a lot of this stuff is for the rifle class that I'm going to breeze through it. Okay, black bears. We already mentioned that black bears were deadly. We get black bears kill people in this country every year, several cases. It never fails. But you're talking about maybe a 300-pound animal instead of an 800-pound animal. A lot easier to kill. All of these calibers here have been used successfully against black bear. .12-gauge shotgun is always good. And the 45-70. 45-70 is probably, it's a classic. 30-30. Variety of rifle calibers that were adequate for black bear defense. If, like when I worked at the Gunsight Academy, it's in the Arizona desert, and they have a rattlesnake problem. I mean, it's a real concern, and everybody carries a 45 ACP with snake shot.
Isn't it the two most venomous snakes too?
Yeah, there's a
Rattlesnake with some kind of green snake. Yeah.
yeah.
Isn't it the,
Yeah. Yeah, they've got a couple of hybrid snakes over there that typically the venom would either attack the nervous system or attack blood, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it's a neurotoxin or a hemotoxin.
Yeah, that's it. It's one or the other. They got a rattlesnake in Arizona that attacks both. It gets you both ways.
You catch them on the green, and you keep it alive and get it to the antivenom producers, you could make 10 grand on this. So buy it. And they just continue to build it. Because there's a very limited antivenom for Mojave too. How do they know this? I sold one.
If you were working at Gunsight, Arizona, you'd probably want to carry a sidearm in one of these calibers so you can carry snake shot. Snake shot doesn't come in every caliber, but it comes in quite a few.
You mentioned earlier that those are more effective cartridges than the snake shot, right? The 9 is not nearly as effective as.
Yeah, 9mm. That's why we're going to see how this new cartridge works out in 9mm, because 9mm CCI is not very good. It's just there's not enough shot. It's very, very small shot. So we're hoping that this 9mm double tap is going to turn out to be a good load. Brennicky, they call it black magic or something. You may know Brennicky slug. Brennicky slug is known for bear stopping. And it's one of the only shotgun cartridges that is sealed for water. Because most of it, if it gets wet, it won't work. Shotgun ammunition. Anyway, if you're going to take a shotgun for bear defense or whatever, you want to get a box of Brennicky slugs. They're much better than the conventional slug, the Foster slug. Got to be careful shooting a rattlesnake with a shotgun or even a rifle. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. This guy was a very prolific writer, and his specialty was handgun shot cartridges and snakes and things we've been talking about. I just can't think of his name right now. Anyway, he wrote, in fact, they took a bunch of his articles and made a giant book out of it. Anyhow, the reason he got into the snake cartridges, he was hunting with a 38-55 rifle. Came to a big coiled up rattlesnake, decided to shoot it. He shoots the snake and it went straight up in the air. And he said, while I was waiting to see where it was going to land, I got to thinking about my judgment. Maybe that wasn't such a good idea, shooting a snake with a rifle. So he got really big into the snake shot stuff, and he probably did more articles than anybody about on that stuff. But as far as the shotgun goes, I'd be afraid if you shot that snake with a shotgun, so much power being transferred, and it's going to go flying somewhere. I'd be real careful about that. I've shot a number of snakes with handgun shot shells. It'll take just a minute to describe a couple. I was getting off work. I was working at Angeles Range, the outdoor range, and I was just leaving the range. And as I came down the road, there's a boys' camp on the left, and then just open fields on the right. And I see about a 5.5-foot rattlesnake, probably one of the 2 or 3 biggest I've ever seen, coming toward the road that I'm on. And I stop and I get out and I switch my ammunition because I got self-defense ammo. So I switched to shot shells. I got out, came around to the front of the car and thought he'll see me and he'll go back. He wasn't the least bit concerned that I was there. He just kept coming towards me. So I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to do this. I was worried because somebody hears gunshots, they look over the fence, they see my license plate, they take my license. You know, I'm discharging a firearm in the city limits. Are they going to like it or maybe not like it? Anyway, I was a little bit concerned. So when he got about 6 feet away, I just aimed at the bottom of his head and fired twice. Pop, pop. Those 2 CCI 45 caliber snake shot just shredded the hell out of him. I got a stick, tossed him off the road, got in my car and drove off. Next day when I came in, the manager of the range says, "Hey," he says, "Hey, one of my clients was leaving, saw this big rattlesnake on the side of the road, and he gave it to me," which was, of course, my snake. And he gave me the rattle. And he kept the skin and made it into a hat band. But that was a good 5.5-foot snake. And that snake shot killed him dead. I once shot 2 times with a 38 snake shot, and he was still pretty active. We used to have a thing on our range. When one of our instructors would see a rattlesnake, whoever was able to switch ammunition first got to kill it. Because we'd be carrying self-defense ammo on our guns, and then we'd have to switch over to the snake shot, change ammo. And that was a drill we'd practice often. So quite a few times. Somebody'd see a rattlesnake, quickly make it, change the ammunition and shoot it. I got a rattlesnake twice I've been struck at. One hit the bottom of my boot, and one it just came up short. It was in a bush near on the road. And that one, I think that second one was in Arizona, was a Mojave green, I think. These snake shots are only good at really short range. In the class, we'll have an opportunity to shoot snake shot at various distances so you can see how fast the shots spread out. And you can just look at the pattern, the shot pattern, and you can ascertain that that's not going to be very effective. It's going to spread out too much. So these are very short range propositions. These shot shells will not work in these carbines. Generally speaking, they will not work. They won't function. Again, we've gone through this, I think, pretty much. These are CCIs. Caliber CCI makes snake shot in. And I would say the 45 auto, the 45 Colt, and the 44 mag are together in first place, followed by 40 Smith & Wesson in second place, followed by everything else beyond that. 38 Special, 9mm are in third place. Oh, I did mention there's been a self-defense shooting with the double tap snake shot. It killed the suspect. That was a female, was being accosted. She shot the guy in the chest, killed him right now. So we're excited to do the test with you because we have not shot these yet. We've seen videos of other people testing them, but we haven't done it. If you're a hand loader, you load your own ammunition like we do, or we can. It's fairly easy to make your own snake shot. And you can make calibers that the companies don't make. Double tap ammo is making a 10mm snake shot. CCI never made one. Yeah. Double tap? Yeah. Yeah, that's a big deal. 10mm is a really popular woods load, and CCI wasn't making it. So people ask about the governor or the judge. These are pistols, revolvers that are designed to shoot both shotgun shells and conventional pistol ammunition. They're a waste of time. They're not going to serve any of our purposes well. Because they have rifling in the barrel, they don't get tight patterns. They spread out too fast. They're just very expensive and they don't do anything for us. A lot of people assume that they're going to be a really handy thing to have. But the pistol's about this big and must weigh about 5 pounds. And they just don't shoot well. So all these notes are just me telling you why I don't like them. Okay, 454 Casull. This is considered to be the Mercedes-Benz of Predator defense revolvers, calibers. 454 is very, very powerful. Now the 460 Smith & Wesson and the 500 Smith & Wesson are even a little bit more powerful, but these are huge, heavy guns. They're like they're so big, you might as well carry a rifle. The Smith & Wesson 460s and 500s. But the 454 is in more of a medium-sized gun. It's very popular in Alaska. It's one of the most popular calibers in Alaska. Considerably more powerful than a 44 mag. It will definitely stop bears. We had one case where a guy's walking on a dirt road right outside town, and he hears a noise, and he turns around, and he's got this big grizzly bear coming at him full steam. Pulls out his 454, and he panics, and he just cranks off 6 rounds. The first one hit the bear and broke his shoulder. The bear went down, and then he got away. Came back later and with a fishing game guy and finished killing the bear. But one shot in the shoulder put that grizzly bear down. It's powerful ammunition. So it's definitely quite a bit, about 50% more powerful than a 44 mag. That's saying something. But what I say about the recoil, I've got some pictures here. I'm going to show you this gun in recoil. You'll be surprised. This is the muzzle flash of a 454. It says, when it absolutely positively must be stopped. This is this is a 5-inch. Yeah. We have one of these. I don't shoot it much. This is the 454 with a 360 grain bullet at 1360 into these water jugs. Yeah. Yeah, that recoil is definitely there. I already told you about these guns. These 475 line ball, 500 line ball, 460 Smith & Wesson, 500 Smith & Wesson. These guns are too big to carry. They kick too hard to shoot. We don't recommend them. They're just too extreme. The 480 Ruger is pushing the limits, but it's doable. The 480 Ruger gets its energy not from high speed, from heavy weight. It's got a very, very big, heavy bullet, so it gets its energy from the momentum of the heavy bullet, as opposed to when you get your energy from velocity, that's when you get that vicious, rapid recoil. Ruger makes one of these that's small enough you could actually carry it. I think. Recoil in the 480 is not as bad as in the 454. And because of the weight and caliber of the bullet, it's probably more effective than the 454. The 480 is not as loud as the 454. Some of these calibers are so loud, it's damaging. The 480 Ruger typically shoots a 400 grain bullet. You know what that means? Big, you're starting to get close to a shotgun slug. Shotgun slugs are 437 grains. You shoot 400 grains out of this thing. Yikes. There's no low recoil practice ammo available for the 480. In fact, the 480 is the low recoil load for the 475 line ball. This is like already loaded down. Sometimes these calibers come out and you can't find ammunition or they're very limited. I found 6 different factory loads for the 480. Now, this is really going to concern you, seriously. For heavily boned, heavily muscled animals, select heavy bullets, heavy for caliber, loaded near the potential of the caliber. With a MEPLA, 70 or 80% of caliber. So if you take your projectile, you look at it, and it's flat. On the end, it's flat. That flat surface is called the MEPLate, or however it's pronounced. So what you want is the MEPLate should be 70 to 80% of the diameter of the bullet itself. So you go to the base of the bullet, you got 100% diameter. But the flat nose should be 70 to 80%. So if it tapers down too much and it's a 30%, now you're not going to get the same effect on meat. It's going to be too pointed. It's going to slip through with less damage. And it's going to tend to tumble. But if we have that 70 to 80% flat point on the nose, that flat plate, 70 to 80%, we're going to get straight line penetration, very little tumbling, hopefully none. And you're going to get your maximum wound.
Really quick for the pronunciation, it's Mipla.
It's French, isn't it?
Mipla.
One more time.
Mipla.
Mipla? Mipla? Been writing about that for years, never knew how to say it.
That's the shape in the front, or the?
It's the flat nose.
Okay.
It's a flat nose. A smaller Mipla reduces the size of the wound channel. People will say, I use this brand of hollow points in my Woods gun and not that one because this one goes 15 inches and that one only goes 12. You're an idiot. We don't measure bear penetration in inches. We measure it in feet. We're not looking for 12 inches. We're looking for 5 feet. Quite literally. We want a bullet that will hit a shoulder bone and break it. And so he wants hollow points because he thinks it's going to be more effective. Now, do you not see he's going the wrong way? And I would have loved to take him aside and talk to him, but he's talking to a salesman. I'm soft lad. People say, what about a full metal jacket? I've got a copper jacket over the end of my lead bullet. Would that be good? Surely that's going to give me good penetration. There was a shooting about maybe less than a year ago. A guide and one of his clients. A bear comes into their camp and attacks people. The guide opens up with his 10 millimeter with hard cast. The hunter opens up with his 45 with hollow points. Both of them dumped their mags. 2 full mags into the bear. This guy put 13 45 quality, top quality, anti-personnel projectiles, people bullets, into this bear, and they did nothing. No bullets that got through the fur, got through the hide, got through some muscle, and they stopped. Those 45 hollow points got through, touched nothing of any consequence. But the guide actually, I think about it, was a 190 grain. It's called Buffalo Boar makes it dangerous game. I think Buffalo Boar calls it their dangerous game load. Because 190 grain bullet. Anyway, it's one piece of monometal. It's better than hard cast. Those bullets just went right through and killed the bear. What a perfect example. The same bear, same shooting. Both of them almost muzzle contact. Both of them dumped their whole mag. What we generally want to do is get hard cast lead. There are some things that are a little bit better, but they're usually very expensive and not common. Sometimes your hard cast lead will have a gas check, and that's good. If you buy an ammunition and it says it's gas check, that's a good thing. It's like a copper, what was it, like a wafer? I'm trying to think of something, like a donut, a little copper donut. The base of the bullet fits in it, and then it goes with the bullet. It does several things. It allows you to shoot lead bullets in your Glock. How many of you know you're not supposed to do that as a general rule? You don't shoot lead bullets in the Glock because of the type of rifling that it has. It will lead the barrel up, and then once the barrel gets leaded up, subsequent shots will cause overpressures. And they've had Glocks blow up for that. So you want to make sure that it's either full metal jacket or, better yet, hard cast lead with a gas check. Yeah, so it's like it's a hard metal, like a brass or some kind of hard metal. It won't expand. It'll work just like hard cast. Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, there's some other ones. There's some other types, but hard cast, heat treated is even better. If you heat treat the bullet, it's less likely to deform, and that's what you want. To get straight line penetration, you want a bullet that doesn't deform. Heat treated flat nose bullets with gas checks are a little pricey, but they're the best all around choice for the biggest game in North America. And they will usually come with gas checks. There's 3 companies that make this ammunition: Double Tap, Buffalo Bore, and Underwood. That's it. There's a couple of small companies that their stuff's kind of questionable, but these are the 3 biggies, 3 big companies that make these kinds of loads. And I bought ammo from all of them on what do you call it? Online. Yeah, you can tell I'm almost a scientist there. All right, that's good. I think we've covered that. No hollow points in the woods, people. No hollow points. What if I want to shoot a deer? Jacketed soft point. Not hollow point. Jacketed soft point. You get better penetration, but you'll also get some expansion. Soft point for deer. Well, let's see. Gas checks allow use in Glock barrels and reduces barrel leading and gas cutting. The total metal jacket and full metal jacket bullets are not even close to hard cast lead for effectiveness. Total metal jacket made by CCI. Oh, so some of these companies will make a hard bullet with no jacket, or encased hard bullet. The lead core is hardened with tin. So CCI does make some ammunition where they use a full metal jacket, but the bullet inside isn't soft lead. It's not going to flatten out. They put tin in that lead so that it remains, keeps its integrity. The bullet you choose is more important than the caliber you choose. It's that important. So what you definitely don't, the bullets, the cartridges that you choose for barrel protection, that is no place that you want to skimp. You want to get the best. So full metal jacket, flat nose are accurate and safe in Glock barrels, but they're not as good as hard cast lead. It will deform. Full metal jacket might be good, might be okay for deer. Better than hollow points. No hollow points for animals over 200 pounds due to insufficient penetration. Federal makes what they call cast core. That's a hard cast lead bullet in a variety of calibers. Double tap, buffalo boar, and grizzly. Grizzly is a small company. Corbon, I don't like their bullet design. Federal cast core is good. I've used it. Grizzly's a small company, and I've seen mixed results. I wouldn't recommend it. Underwood, great. Double tap buffalo boar underwood. Here we go. Spear, I don't know.
Spear long series is the practice round we kind of recommend because if you have to fall back on it.
Yeah. Keep in mind that full metal jackets are not a close second to hard cast. Hard cast is way out there in its own. Jacketed bullets will perform well on a large animal if no bone is hit. You dump a magazine into a bear, you're going to try and be careful you don't hit a bone? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Federal cast core is good stuff. Double tap ammo is in Cedar City. And they'll ship stuff to you pretty quick. That's a big bullet, 360 grain bullet. Let's take 5. Use the restroom, get a drink. No?
Lunchtime, are we?
Is it lunchtime?
It's a little after 12:30.
Okay, we can get, can you guys go a few more minutes?
We know we're getting lunch, yeah.
Okay, we'll go just a little bit more, finish this up. Oh, 9mm. The only gun you've got is a Glock 17. Beats a sharp stick every time. We've got 4 or 5 cases now of people being attacked by bears and putting those bears down with a 9mm. Remember what I said? The bullet's more important than the caliber, right? And they were using the right ammo. In fact, there was one fishing guide. He's carrying a Smith & Wesson 9mm loaded with 147 grain hard cast lead flat nose. And he's guiding some people, and they're going to go down to the lake or what, river, whatever it is, and get in their boats. So he's taking them down. As they're walking down from the camp to the river, they realized that in an area maybe the size of this room, there's the guide, a man and two teenage girls, and a giant grizzly bear, all in an area about as big as this room right here. Well, the girls just hugged each other and dropped to the ground. It was a smart thing to do because the bear didn't bother them. But the guide just felt that the situation was too dangerous. He couldn't count on the bear's mood, so he opened up on him with this 9mm. He had bullets go all the way through from this side, all the way through that bear and sticking out of the hide on the other side. 147 grain plus P hard cast lead, and with I think he shot it 7 times. Whatever it was, he had 1 round left in his gun. Bear died. There was another one where 2 guys are camping, and there's so many lessons. Every time I hear one of these stories, there's a lesson. Two young men are camping in a tent. One of them has a .44 Magnum. The other has a 9mm Glock 17. I think he had full metal jackets. Not sure. I think that's what it was. Anyway, the guy with the 44 Magnum gets up to urinate, leaves the tent, walks a few yards away, and he gets accosted by a bear. He didn't take his revolver. That's why we have handguns, because we can take them everywhere. So this bear gets on him and it starts chewing him up. His buddy runs out with his 9mm Glock 17 and just starts unloading on this bear. Amazingly, does not hit his partner. He puts about a half a magazine. So what is that, about a 17-round mag? I think he puts 6, 7, 8 rounds in initially. The bear got off his friend, went down, got up again, and he gave him the other half of the magazine and he was dead. So it took 18 rounds. And it was probably just FMJ, but it was a big grizzly. Did it with a 9mm. So it'll do. The other thing, besides how critical your bullet selection is, where you put the bullet. A shot in the spine, you're golden. You know, shoot 'em right up the nose, right through the eye socket, lights out. If you can get a bullet where it's going to do the most good, and that's not always easy, especially when the bear's over there. The bear ripped the guy that was being attacked. The bear took his testicles and tore him up. For the bear, it's like the bear has a gigantic razor blade, 6 of them, 5 or 6, whatever it is, 5. And it's just, whew, that's all he's got to do. And he just said, you're going to bleed out in a couple of minutes. You're going to lose blood so fast that your survival's not likely. And just like chimpanzees, the bear is smart enough to know he doesn't want you to appropriate. So he takes away your man parts. Well, there's a number of animals historically that will do that. Chimpanzees. They'll rip your eyes out, tear your balls off. Baboons, yeah. Baboon's a vicious creature. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What does this say? Okay. Oh, these are like, here's some 45 loads. You shooting just a 45 auto. How about a 255 grain hard cast lead flat point loaded to plus P pressure? That's a stomping round, man. So a lot of people think of the 45 auto as a FUD round. It's an old people's round. They don't have a lot of appreciation for it. If you get the right bullet, it'll work. Lots of bears. Oh, where's Ron? What's that? Where they have the research? They're blogging all the attacks. Give me a second. I'll get it for you. Anyway, it's an online place where you can go. What this guy's done is every time he gets a verifiable report on a bear, and he finds out what kind of gun and what kind of ammo it is, and then he puts it in his database. So he's got hundreds of cases. So you can look and see, you want to look up 45 ACP? We have these 7 cases. 44 Magnum, we have 13 cases of bears being stopped with these calibers. So there's some really interesting stuff. They give you just a short synopsis of the incident, and then they give you the gun and the ammo, if they got it.
Those lead bullets then, like the CCI and those two 147 grains, are they hard cast lead?
I don't know. Where was it on my list? This list?
Yeah.
Lead flat nose, TMJ.
Let's see.
Yeah. I know for a fact that most of these are hard cast. Maybe all of them.
But lead, we're not supposed to shoot through the guns?
You what they're doing is now is they're putting a coating on the projectiles. So if one, it's a hard bullet. It's not a soft lead bullet. So they're going to leave a lot of deposits. And then secondly, they put, in fact, it looks like a lipstick tube because they've got the projectiles red. And what it is, it's a coating they put on them so you can shoot them in standard barrels. So if I was carrying a 10 millimeter in the woods, I'd carry probably a 220. 220, yeah. The 10 millimeter is bigger than 220. They tend to become unstable. They don't. They tend to want to tumble. So I would go 200 or 220. .45 Super. Something with a .45 auto, you could change out the recoil spring and maybe a couple of the parts and shoot .45 Super out of or you need a different barrel. You need a barrel that's got a fully enclosed chamber. But I have a .45 Glock that's been converted with a KKM barrel and a heavier recoil spring, and I can shoot .45 Super. So what that gives me, instead of shooting a 230 at 850, I'm shooting a 250 at 1100. You're getting up real close to 44 mag now. Plus you got the advantages of an auto reloading and so on. In fact, Springfield Armory just came out with another .45 auto pistol, and it's rated for .45 Super from the factory. So you can shoot .45 Super, .45 SMC short magnum cartridge. You can shoot .45 plus P plus. Just about any .45 autos out there you can shoot in this gun. And I think we'll see more of that because a lot of people like a heavy loaded .45 auto for bears. So. See, what we're looking at is heavy for caliber. 41 mag 250, that's a little heavy for a 41. .454 with a 360 grain bullet. That's a big bullet. .480 Ruger with a 400 grain bullet. Again, it's that heavy bullet. It's hard to make the heavy bullet stop. It has momentum, and it wants to just keep going, and that's what we want. So that's why we go with the heavier bullets. We're not going to do rifles on this one. If you want a rifle for bear defense, get a 45-70 and be done with it. It's fast shooting, good follow-up, tremendous power. Shoots a 4.58 bullet at about 2,000 feet per second. It'll stop a charging lion. Oh, okay. Your 357, let's see which one. Your 40 Smith & Wesson, 200 grain bullet in a carbine, it moves up to 700 foot-pounds. Now you're getting into magnum territory. That's just an example of how much difference it makes. 44 mag, 300 grain bullet 1,500 feet a second in a carbine is going to get you 1,500 foot-pounds. Whereas in a handgun, it was maybe going to get you 11, something like that. The only slug, Brennicky. The Foster slugs, not waterproof. A lot of people will recommend triple-aught buck for bear defense. I'll tell you, the bear guards never use buckshot. And that's all they get paid. And that's what keeps them alive is that gun. They use slugs only. Never heard of a bear guard using buckshot. I wouldn't recommend buckshot in your predator defense shotgun. Stay with the slug. Now here's a thought. If you are hunting, hiking, cycling, doing whatever it is that you do in the woods, in the backcountry where there's no, you're not going to run into many people. Maybe you might not run into anybody, or you might occasionally pass somebody. And that's different than if you're camping in a trailer park, you know. You got to be careful where you decide how you want to. Do I want to carry concealed, or do I want to carry open? As a general rule, you probably want to be concealed. It's going to be a little bit slower, but you don't want people calling, you know, there's a guy out here with a gun, and what's he doing? Well, nothing, but he's got a gun. You know, you don't need that kind of attention. So I think you're better off if you can keep your gun concealed. If you have to go into, for some reason, okay, I want to pick up a map. I'm going to go into the ranger station. Leave your gun locked in your car. These guys have no sense of humor. You're not allowed to take your gun in there, in these facilities. You just don't.
Yeah, those are federal buildings.
Yes.
Larry, I think Ammo Land is what you were trying to think of, where the bear attacks were stored.
What? I can't hear you.
I think that Ammo Land was the...
Yes, Ammo Land. Where'd you find it?
I have a note here.
Oh, no, nice. Ammo Land. You look up Ammo Land on your, you know, on your phone, and they have a study on bears and pistols. The bottom line is, 97 to 98% of all the cases where someone used a pistol in self-defense to stop a bear, they were successful. There's 2 cases where they weren't, and the pistol was a .22. Well, I think it was a polar bear. You're going to try and stop a polar bear with a .22 revolver, right? Not needless to say, they became lunch. But in every other case that a gun was used, it worked. I've seen people, I've studied these incidents where people have deterred a bear or stopped an attack or driven them off, picking up about a 3-pound rock and doing about a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, catching them right in the head. You had 2 or 3 people doing that. Some of these cases, somebody picks up a tree limb, somebody else is throwing rocks at the bear's head, and somebody's beating on them, poking them in the nose. A lot of times they'll take off. So they can be discouraged. But I can tell you, hands-on, you know, if people said, "Oh, I do jujitsu, you know, I'm going to take that bear," you know. I'm serious. People actually believe that they can take a bear in a hand fight. No. First, the bear's armed. He's got 12 razors right there. And bears will a bear can slap a big animal. They say that he can slap a moose in the head and kill him. I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't want him slapping me. They're strong. Oh, by the way, a grizzly bear's sense of smell is 7 times greater than a hound dog. The dogs they use to track people down and lost people and stuff. 7 times greater sense of smell. And they can run 35 miles an hour and hold that speed for a long distance. The fastest runner that's ever lived wouldn't last 10 seconds against a bear. They can outrun a racehorse for 100 yards. They can climb trees. Grizzly bears can climb trees. People think, well, if it's a black bear, I can climb a tree. Black bears climb trees easy, but even big grizzly bears will climb trees. They do. If you carry your gun concealed, you're going to keep the rain and the dirt and the dust and sand out of your gun, and people aren't going to see you and become concerned. If you fall down, I'm very knowledgeable about falls. You're going to have some protection if it's concealed. If you have to defend yourself against a criminal attack, you may maintain the element of surprise if you keep your gun concealed. Concealed gun does not frighten the Democrat that you met on the trail. Sorry, the Democrat Party is not very pro-gun. Open carry is probably faster and easier to access. So if I was back, I've done some hiking back way past the last camper. And I'd be, my buddy Joe Andrew and I did some real hardcore backpacking. We'd get back so far that we wouldn't see anybody for a week. So in that case, I wouldn't worry too much about the gun. But if you're in places where there's a lot of other people around, it might be more convenient if you just keep it concealed. The most popular holster in Alaska is a chest holster. They carry their guns and pistols here. Yes. Okay, let's break. Yes. Before we go into a different material. During lunch, if you brought your lunch and you're going to eat it here, feel free to do so. As they used to say in the Army, just throw away your trash because your mom and mother doesn't work here. If you're going to bring your lunch here and eat, we are available to answer questions during lunch. We're happy to do so. Anything remotely related to the subject, we'll do our best to answer it if we can. So feel free to eat in here and to ask questions. Any questions right now, real quick, for the group?
How long are we taking for lunch?
An hour. Yes, we'd like to have everybody ready to go by 2 o'clock.